Hello everyone and welcome back to Old World. We are live once again with another match of the 2026 Community Tournament. Nestor versus Quetzal Part 2. Yushi versus the Persians. Very exciting times indeed. Gonna get myself set up. Gonna let our friends, our Discord on know that we are live. And yeah, we can start the party. Start the party. Copy. Alright, thanks for bearing with me, everybody, if you're live, and of course, if you're watching after the fact on YouTube, thanks for being here. And exciting times. Let's get caught back up in this game today. Alright, so this has been an interesting one. The Persians came all the way over to Keturah over here by the Albus River and did a forward settle. Bold move there. They did that caused them to delay the city a couple of times, a couple turns. They could have settled back here, but they moved forward. I really would have preferred a swap on these families, but whatever. Water under the bridge, here we are. They have entrenched themselves up north quite a bit. We see some walls and moats coming up in Sanchi. And it looks like the Yushi have steel and axes up and running. The Yushi managed to secure the majority of the central location, while Persia also got themselves up here at Sardis. There's a little bit of tension down here on Purashapura, but seems like all is well. Let's see if I missed any big conflicts. We're getting a little bit of a head start. Nope, but power spike is coming up on the Persians here. So let's do a dive into what's going on in their neck of the woods. I'm seeing only 3 laws in Persia and 2 for Yushi. Yushi have their stirrups timing. Turn 61, not too bad. They now have monasticism, which is great. That's going to help for the orders, so I'm going to suspect that they have, 8 orders per turn from Zoroastrianism. Very, very nice. Very nice on that. I tend to not bother with the polytheism and the divine rule, at least if I'm doing the stirrup thing, because mostly there's not enough time. I'll be curious if we're going to be seeing a timing attack. We do have a horse archer. Let's take a look at the whole of the Yushi military. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 horse archers, a camel archer, a step rider, and a bunch of chariots. 2, 4, 6 chariots. And then quite a handful of axemen. Looks like about 6 axemen. So all told, about 19 units in the Yushi Empire, or otherwise known as the Kushan Empire. I might refer to them as Kushan every now and then. On the Persian side of things, we have only 6... Oh, no, forgive me. We have 26 units. All right, let's take a breakdown of this. We have a metric crapload of archers. 2, 4, 6, 8 archers, 2 slingers that can become archers, and a camel archer, all with decent amount of promotions as well. We have a chariot, and we have, oh wow, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 spears, and a warrior. Ooh, what an unlucky bonus draw. Nothing worse, possibly, than getting the free ballista in the same turn as your free 6 strength units. I agree with the pick here. You got to go with the Palatins, especially since you get the sense that your opponent's going to be fielding a lot of mounted, but the ballista would be very, very handy for those axes. Doctrine is also nice as well. Let's look at science rate between our players at this stage in the game. The Yushi are just crushing this. Turn 67, 143 science per turn for Nestor. Versus Persia's 75 science per turn. Interestingly enough, though, despite the gap here and the rising gap as far back on turn 40, the Yushi are only about 900 science deeper into the tech tree overall than their opponent. Also, I am still in the era, for those of you catching up after the fact in the future. I'm still in my era. This is game 3 or 4 of my era of recovering from a little bit of a cold. So if I sound a bit sniffly or cough a little bit, my apologies, my sincere apologies to everybody, and appreciation for everyone bearing with me here as I try to keep the coverage going. I was able to take an entire week and a half off from coverage, though, or at least a week. So huge shout out to the participation from all of our other casters, Alcaris and Boldus. You know, tournament organizers have been chipping in, Aaron as well, but also other volunteer casters who have stepped up, like Sean, and I'm sure I'm missing people, Magnus, and other stuff. So yeah, great community effort from everybody involved getting coverage in this game. We really, so far, we've had a massive amount of games, and we've only missed a couple. And to be totally honest, though, it's fine if we missed coverage. You know, it's very important not to burn yourselves out. But I will be casting today, so I've decided that I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to cast as much of this one as I can. Because, you know, this might only last a couple of hours. They've already been playing for approximately 1 hour. So we do have an hour of footage not caught. It doesn't look like we saw any conflict, by the way. That's what I wanted to check. Yeah, no conflict in that hour. So just a bit of build-up. And then I'm going to hop into the next game on a little bit of a delay. So we'll probably miss the first 15 to 20 turns of that next game, which is, you know, that's all right. I can go around and I can kind of do a recap of things that have gone on, unless, of course, I miss some early conflict. We do have a Jerwin Aqueduct coming down. Let's do another wonder check. Persia has built a couple of wonders. Yushi have built a couple of wonders. Jebel went to Yushi, which is a nice, really good grab for them. And Yazakalaya is coming... it's coming down as well, which is also great. Stupa to Persia, which is good. And Aqueduct to Persia as well. Colosseum is on the map, so let's do a legendary race. No time soon for the Persians. 43 turns from here on turn 67. And, oh yeah, we're not even close with Yushi either. 76 turns. So, Colosseum should not be too much of a factor in this particular game. It might be. Could be. Depends on how long we go. But I don't anticipate that happening. I'm sure we'll see some conflict at some point. Or maybe not. Maybe they'll just continue to build up. We have some roads coming online. I think... Oh, wow. Political situation in Persia is looking really great as well. Judaism is a big fan of us, and paganism is a big fan of us. Looks like we have conspiring and endeared with the head. How old are we? We are 58, so that could be coming... That could come to an end relatively soon. Ooh, we have Horsebane on the ruler as well. You know, with our power, Nestor shows is weaker. It might be an interesting opportunity, excuse me, to maybe take advantage of some power. Early power here. Forgive me? It's so interesting because, you know, with this cold, if you allow me a moment to sidetrack. You know, I'm fine through... I'm relatively fine, you know, mostly recovered throughout the day. But I'm not talking all that much, right? I'm just kind of keeping to myself. And then, as soon as I hop on a cast and start casting... So I should be muting the mic. I need a hotkey for that. I don't know if there's a natural hotkey for that, but I should set one up because I don't have a hotkey, so that's why I'm bad at muting my mic. I have to Alt-Tab and click it manually because, yeah, no hotkey. Yeah, so it could be interesting to see if Persia wants to take an advantage of some strength here. Probably a little bit tricky. Horse archers could be tricky to deal with. The way to conceptualize, even though we have all these spears, one of the ways to conceptualize the horse archer in terms of damage output, potential damage output, or of course any unit that isn't a spear, so these archers, is a sentinel archer is 5 strength plus 20%, so that's 6, at least a minimum of 6 strength inside friendly territory, which of course we all know sentinel archers are nightmarish to deal with. But a horse archer is 6 strength baseline, so they're basically highly mobile, slightly shorter range sentinel archers that can go in and out of any territory, which is one of the things that has made me evaluate their threat, reevaluate, should I say, their threat level. It turns out they actually make a pretty decent addition to an army composition because they are really good at going on the offensive. I feel like the archer and the sentinel is good for defense. I mean, to be clear, an early enough archer timing is almost impossible to deal with. If you get flooded by 12 archers in like 35 turns, good luck. So archers are certainly brutal, but I like the mobility of the horses, and also I really like the pressure that the presence of the horses, or the knowledge that the horses are coming, will force your opponent into building lots of spears, which then create a nice circular kind of power thing where we can bring in axes and do really hard damage to the spears, and it creates this interesting cycle. The stirrups horse archer thing, well, actually the horse archer thing specifically, has made me realize that there's been a bit of a puzzle, a bit of a piece of the puzzle missing of the whole rock, paper, scissors dynamic of this, because spears in particular felt so overwhelmingly devastating against mounted, which of course we did have access to deal with that, but it felt like there was no mid-grade upgrade, because even horsemen struggle with spears a bunch, or the 6 strength unique units like the heavy chariot struggle, or the elephant. The Carthaginian elephant can struggle with just a very basic spear. So it felt like, there isn't anything, like stirrups always felt like a risky grab to me, because from the perspective of the horseman, it's, well, why am I going to get 6 strength units that are just going to get deleted by, the phalanx that my opponent got back on turn 30 or 40, they're going to have spears, so many spears up in the time that it takes for me to get stirrups. But the missing piece of that puzzle for me has become the horse archers specifically. They, the other thing, I talk about how they are basically mobile sentinel archers, right? The other thing that makes it interesting on that front is that they do not cost wood. They cost wood to make, yes, but you can cover this through chopping and market buying, but they only cost food to uptick. So it's actually, I would say it's, if you're fielding like a dozen horse archers for your ranged output, it actually doesn't require forestry. Whereas if you're fielding a dozen archers, you don't necessarily need forestry, but that's going to be a huge upkeep that's eventually going to start taxing your economy. That's literally just not going to happen if you have this unit. And it's easier to make up for this unit because you can just keep building farms. You always have access to farms. So certainly map dependent, situation dependent, nation dependent, and all that fun, good stuff. Pros and cons to everything. But my experience with the Yushi in particular, and then taking that stuff into the other nations in the game, has made me realize that horse archers are an interesting proposition. Big fan. And that's one of my favorite things about the game. I have nearly 7,000 hours I've been playing in this game. I've been playing this game for years. Excuse me. And I'm still learning things new about the design and the ways, the mechanics that you can flex in ways that might not have been readily apparent. And probably the other best example of that is orthodoxy and doctrine. I spent about 2.5 years thinking orthodoxy was arguably the most useless law in the game, because I thought, as many less experienced players do, who the hell is going to be spending orders to rush production? That doesn't make sense. You need your orders constantly. But I've drastically changed my tune on that. I think orthodoxy is now arguably one of the most powerful laws in the game, and I think order rushing is massively, massively powerful. Looks like we scored a kill here. The Brahmin that was chopping wood has been attacked by some spears and has gone down. Skipper wants to join on the next cast. Yeah, yeah. I think that should work. I think that's what you're asking. Hold on. Let me... They're the weird emoji thing. I'm not... Yes. I just realized I did an ellipses. Skipper, I just realized I did an ellipses, which sounds like I don't want you to. I was just doing that to clear the chat. There's this weird... Looking at that in that chat, that makes me look like such a dick. There's this weird emoji thing. Yeah, there's this weird emoji thing where like it allows me to heart or cheer or all that stuff, and I'm gonna do it now in case you guys can see it. But what that does is that stops me from seeing some of the words on the most recent sentence in my comment section. Oh, looks like I've lost connection to the server, so we'll see if we get back here. Zoff got a win, yeah. Yes. Okay. Looks like we have a rehost. Okay. Yeah, so anyway, yes, Skipper, you can join in, and that'll be great. And that's fine. But that was funny. Yeah, so I was just trying to bump the chat up so I could... Like, for example, when I, even the sentence right here that says, yeah, as co-caster, I can only see co-cast. I don't, the rest of it's cut off. Yeah, so here we are. But yeah, that sounds good. I'll get you in at some point. Now, the other thing, there's the flip side to this, to what I was saying about the mechanics and uncovering new things, like, oh, turn to horse archers are neat, or, oh, turn to orthodoxy is really powerful. The flip side is calling for buffs for these things, right? And to be very clear, before I go on this minor rant, I've done this. I spent those same 2 years where I thought orthodoxy was a shit law, asking for it to be buffed time and time and time and time again, and it never was. It never was. It was not touched. And I'm glad it wasn't touched, because it turns out I was wrong, and the mechanic is awesome, and it's super, super strong. So I think that's funny, and that's probably what fuels some of my crabbiness. I'm not trying to make sure that I'm the only person who gets to make balanced suggestions or things for the game, but this is one of the things that fuels a little bit of my Discord crabbiness when people come along and ask for certain changes to be made, because I think it's very, very easy, as somebody who does have so much time in this game, both in terms of years and hours spent playing. I both have personal experience with... Well, on the one hand of it, I know so much about the game that I can see certain things that maybe not the average player can't see. So there's a little bit of arrogance associated with that, sure. But then the flip side of it is actually humility, because I've been in situations where I've been actively lobbying for changes, and one of two things happen. It never has happened, and the change never happens, like with orthodoxy, and then I eventually realize, oh shit, orthodoxy never actually needed a buff. Never mind, I'm wrong. Or the change did actually happen, and after the fact I realized, oh, you know what? That was a bad idea. That was a bad idea, because X, Y, and Z that I wasn't able to anticipate the impact of this change having on those 3 other things in the game. So, a decent and recent example is the schemer change. I just like that they've been allowed to be ambassadors and chancellors, just because I think... it's very easy to miss. It's easy to think, oh, hey, I want to use this archetype for other jobs and, be able to use a character. It's a lot harder to realize the cascading impact that could have on the overall infrastructure of the game. And I think that's true even for the developers themselves. I think Soren and the team can come up with an idea and say, hey, that seems like a good idea. And then even they can bump into situations where it's like, oh, wait, we forgot to think about this one or two other things that would happen if we did this thing. And then end up in a awkward situation. So it becomes very interesting because, for myself, sorry, I'm browsing around to see if I can pay attention to anything while going on these rants. I hope people don't mind these rants, because sometimes, let me check an event. Sometimes I feel like I'm not paying enough attention to the game. Do we have that? We have, ooh, Hypatia coming online. This is a great courtier to show up. And our second in line can be a tactician or a zealot. I'll be curious which we choose here. So keep an eye on this. We've chose a tactician. And we're also insane, which is funny. Yeah, Skipper chiming in chat. I liked it on paper, but after seeing what Schema Chancellors and Ambassador are like, I agree it's not a great change. Yeah, see, and that happens all the time. And that, it happens to all of us. And to Mohawk's credit, what I love is they are very receptive to feedback. They make quality of life changes, but they also will make balance changes based off community feedback, or overall gameplay changes. They'll say, hey, it seems like most people don't like this thing, so they'll tweak this thing, which in a lot of ways is cool, but in a lot of other ways can be super, super annoying. Alrighty. Trying to think of a change. Oh, hello. Minor coming out in the capital. That's nice. Let's look at the overall stats between the two cities in the Empire. Between the cities in the Empire. I like checking out this. I haven't been in the habit of checking out these a lot. Excuse me. I am not going to go through every little detail, just things that might stand out. Training, for example, in the Persian Empire, we have a city with 25 training and a city with 30. If we hop on over to the Yushi, we have a city with 35 training and a city with 22. So 2 decent training hubs in each city, which is pretty good. Growth seems to overall be higher in the Persian Empire, but we have a very high output of growth in the capital for the Yushi. What's interesting here, I like this a lot. Look at this. Look at the science output. I'm highlighting this. Feel free to zoom in if you're on a phone or somewhere else. Science, we know in... wow, look at this. Look how much science in Yushi is coming from characters. 21 science coming from our Spy Master, who is the same as Duke Abaraka. Duke Abaraka is giving us in total 32 science per turn. That is almost as much science as our capital. No, sorry, as our main cleric hub, Saketa. So if we look over in Persia, on the other hand, right? Persia has 24 science, 14 science, 10. Yeah, overall, Persia's general empire science is not too far behind the Yushi. Where we're seeing a lot of that weight come in is both in the court for Yushi and also the portcullis option. Let's see if we're looking at any agents. 8 science from this agent. So this is the thing about portcullis that is both its strength but also its weakness. And one of the reasons why, good lord, hold on, I need to mute my mic again. So sorry, guys. Doop. Did I not mute my mic? Okay, sorry. What did I... Did I mute my... Oh, I did... Yeah, I always... This is why I need a hotkey, because I always click the wrong button. I muted my headphones. That's funny. Okay, so anyway, sorry for the last 2 minutes or 1 minute of me blowing my nose and maybe talking to myself. I don't even know if I was talking to myself or not. Okay, so, what was I saying? Oh, this is both the strength and the weakness of portcullis on display in this game, and why some players don't necessarily like it as a science tech, right? But we are getting easily 40 science per turn from portcullis right now in this game. 21 plus 8 is 30, so we're easily getting 30 science per turn from portcullis. And what makes it both strong and weak is that basically, simply put, it's volatile. You can beeline portcullis, try to get yourself set up with a nice spy master and an agent, and maybe the best science output you're going to get from that whole shenanigans is maybe 10 or 15 science, right? So, I mean, that's not too bad because you get it right away, you know, unlike, you know, an elder doctor from architecture, which is going to get you about 12-ish science usually in a you know, from a strong city. So one elder doctor is 12 science. You need to build the bath. You need to build the doctor, and you need to get it all the way up to elder, either through judge spamming or high civic output or whatever, right? So there's time investment to get that 12 science. One thing that I think that is often overlooked about portcullis is that even if you're getting a small amount from your spy master, like 6 science, you do admittedly get it immediately. The other quick one would be land consolidation, because land consolidation only takes a couple of turns to build all your groves, but you need a lot of groves for it to really output, you know. And then, of course, you need to put the gardeners in there, which is more time. So one thing portcullis does have going for it is that its science output that you gain from it is immediate. But its weakness is that it's volatile. You could be looking at an extra 20, 30, 40 science from your portcullis output, or you could be looking at an extra 6 to 10. So that's a huge, huge difference in potential science output. But I do like it as a science tech, and more importantly, I like it to keep track of my opponent. So one thing that we often talk about is culture races, right? So now as a Yushi player, I can look inside Parsa and I can say, oh, they're 37 years away from legendary. And then I can look at my capital and be like, ooh, whoops, excuse me. Ooh, we are 75 years away. So I can actually decide, do I want to build some wonders, or do I want to, you know, build Odeons or something? Do I want to get my culture rate up? And the cool thing is I don't have to have the anxiety about the race. I can just add a couple sources of culture into the city, make sure that that number drops below, that my turn time drops below 37 years, you know, keeping pace with Parsa. You know, if I can get it down to 30 or 25 years away from legendary, well then I've secured the legendary race, right? And of course, obviously, what they're building, what they're capable of, all this fun stuff. Can also read their tech tree. For example, we can see, even if we couldn't see archers on the map or spears on the map, you can look at these build queues with your agent, and you can say, okay, we have archers, so we know we have comp bow. I know we have phalanx. So much like law tooltip sleuthing, we can get information from the agents as well. That's pretty direct. It helps you paint a whole big puzzle. And if you want to really parse the difference between your empires, if you look at the city tooltip, right? First of all, you get the specialist breakdown, 7 specialists in the city, and all of what they are. So that's nice. That's a nice readout. And then the other thing is, you get the full training of all this stuff, fun stuff. But where is it? If you add up all their science from all the different cities that you have agent networks in, you can pretty much intuit the general science rate, probably within about 20% of their actual science rate, because you can't account for character stuff. But then the other thing, where is it? Ah, here it is. Improvement. The improvement count. If you have enough agents in an empire, you can do another quick tally of all the improvement counts and then compare it to your own output, right? So we see Yushi have 89 improvements. Persia has 77. With enough agent networks for Yushi, you could actually basically intuit how far economically you are ahead in terms of overall improvement output. And you can do the same thing with income, too. If you click on the city with the agent, you'll see that Parsa is making 55 food per turn. I'm pretty sure you get that on the tooltip, right? No, you don't. All right, so you can see the 55 food. So obviously, all this takes time. It's harder to do in a network game, but it's certainly an option. It's a tool in the toolbox for you to read the situation and get a sense of exactly how far ahead you are or behind you are of your opponent, which is actually exactly why I forfeited my previous tournament match against Alcaris last season, because I did get portcullis pretty early, I think. Set up a bunch of agent networks, and I could see the entire empire. Had all the information in the world to compare my empire to his at like the turn 60-ish mark, and I was like, there's no way. There's like maybe a 5 or 10% chance I come back and I win this game at some point, but there's no way. So I didn't even bother going on to a second session. I knew what we were working with, and so that's nice to have all that information. Portcullis is arguably one of the stronger techs in the game. It's just a difficult to fold into the overall ecosystem of the text that you may or may not want. I'm actually curious who has the better economy right now. Looks like Persia has the better economy right now. What about orders? I haven't done an order check yet. Usually just jumped up on orders. That's probably from the Jebel getting finished, if I would have guessed. Or monasticism being... Oh, yeah, we adopted monasticism around that time. Look at that. That's a great development there. Monasticism really helps fill some gaps. Seeing some more upgrades, some generals coming online. So this is what's really interesting here from Persia. Persia is posturing on 2 different fronts. The armies are now similar, and the Persians are naive. So I think maybe the Persians are thinking that it's kind of now or never. They did notice, they should have noticed in the last several turns that Persia remained weaker. So seeing the similar uptick is probably causing them to force their hand a little bit. We're seeing 2 axes coming out in the next 2 turns, another horse archer at next turn. In fact, the training in this city is not too bad that we don't even need to do the step rider thing. Horse archer's coming out in 5 turns. A step rider plus an upgrade would basically be a 3-turn horse archer. So, I mean, you could, but that would be more training intensive. We do have pretty good training, though. But yeah, one thing not to forget about when you're doing your step rider into horse archer math, if you're planning to do the upgrade pipeline even while you have access to building the horse archers, is don't forget that you actually need 1 extra turn after the step rider is built to upgrade it to the horse archer. So this is not a 2-turn horse archer, this is a 3-turn horse archer. And I've been in situations where you can basically build a 3 or 4-turn horse archer, in which case it actually doesn't really make much sense to bother doing the step rider conversion. Where it becomes useful is in cities such as This is a great example where the horse archer would take you 10 turns to build, but you could, for double the training cost, take a transform it into a 3-turn horse archer, which of course is quite insane, but yes, you need the training output to be able to do it, and of course the economy to be able to support it, because as awesome as it would be to get every single city churning out 3 or 4 turn horse archers, being able to afford that is a different question, is a different matter entirely. Can you hear me? I think horse archers are fine. Sorry, horsemen. Skipper saying horsemen should be 7th ranked. I actually think they're fine. If anything, I think it would be cool for them to maybe get a bonus against ranged units. Like maybe a plus 25% attack against ranged units. But I don't think their strength value needs to be buffed. Overall, should I say. I think they're in a good spot. Because the other thing about spears, and I've made this mistake myself as well, right? It's very easy to look at this whole formation and say, and this is true, by the way, and say that the presence of just, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spears is enough to shut down almost any amount of mounted units, really, trying to charge into this line. Just a couple of spears can really cause a problem. But I think what's easy to overlook is that with the horse archer thing, even if you lose every single horse archer as a response, this is the part that people miss, I think. Even if you lost every single horse archer that you aimed to go do this with, right? You could take a turn, send in your horse archers. Look at this. This is 7 damage. So as with any counter, quote-unquote counter, let's look at an axe, right? Here we go, an axe. Axe is 8 damage, right? So an axe is still going to take 3 hits to 3 axes. It would take 3 hits for 3 axes to kill these guys. Same thing with the horse archers, right? So, and to be clear, the horse archers would do it with less orders, which is also fun, especially if they have Eagle Eye, because literally this would just be 2 orders. 1, 2 with Eagle Eye. Anyway, point being is you could charge in, what is this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, you could take a turn, send in 9 horse archers, right? Kill 3 spears. Even if in response, you lost, I don't know, every single horse archer. That feels like a bad trade. But what happens is we all recognize route is the most powerful, one of the most powerful mechanics in the game. What happens is now there's only 3 spears in the region among mostly archers, which basically you open yourself up to routing. It's what I'm trying to say here is even trading unevenly feels like it can go well, because for every spear you kill, you force the player into a tricky situation where they either need to build more spears and not sentinel archers, which is what they'd probably prefer to be building, or you open up to a situation where they can start being routed a bunch. And this is probably a better example. This spear wall down here, because this is obviously a very entrenched position. You wouldn't want to attack this position anyway, so that was probably a poor example. This is a better example. We could come in here with a handful of horse archers and obliterate this spear wall. And then if we look in this whole overall region, what that would leave left is just 2 spears that can actually get to us, a 3rd spear that can probably force march to us. So we lose a couple of horse archers, but then we have more spears out in the open to secure kills. So we send in our axes. Also, you could always position an axe up here after a move like that. Come in, kill the spear wall, and then come in with an axe and make it hard for these northern spears to do anything about it. So it's a combined arms thing. It's not, 10 horse archers versus 10 spears. But honestly, even in that fight, people think the spears would win. The reality that whoever strikes first. in that breakdown. All right, so we are advancing down south. But look at this. This comfy horse archer from the comfort of this city can do 7 damage to the spear. And it doesn't need to worry about the counter also. Very nice thing. Do we have any regular archers? No. We do not. That's okay. Yeah, wild. Although they did technically leave themselves open for a route. But yeah, so the trick is, oh, we're seeing more advancement from the north as well. This is dope. We are seeing a 2-pronged attack from the Persians. Let's see once more who has more orders. It's actually the Yushi now. It hasn't been up until this point. Up until like just a few turns ago. And the Yushi do have serfdom. Oh, actually I'm looking. Yeah, the Yushi do have serfdom that they can adopt. They just do not have the civics. Politics in Yuji is solid, a friendly and a pleased family. This is great. This is exactly why I wanted to cast this session before diving into the next one, because I had a feeling that there was going to be conflict. But I am going to step away for a second because I need another tissue, so I'm keeping all eyes on this northern front. Forgive me 1 second. Oh no, it's the Yuji turn. All right, looks like we've moved some axes up. And we're going to do some... So this is great. This is also really great. Because the other thing I've been enjoying about the horse archer thing is they really make up for the lack of range situation. Ooh, we will be 1 damage short, though, which is always annoying. Always annoying. Oh, that's super annoying. Can we fix anything about that? No. The riders, though, are now back to friendly, which is great. So we are taking our kill secure. And look at that. The archer only does 4 damage. That's pretty great. Nice position of the axe up here. Also, if you find yourself in a situation like this where you're really worried about horses taking their massive amount of damage. Oh, probably actually don't want to do that. But I was going to suggest putting a worker here and just upgrading it to a quick militia. I think militias are a little underutilized. Because in a conflict such as this, a militia would still take at least 2 attacks to kill. Usually still 3, depending on what we're working with. And that means that's 3 attacks that don't hit something else more important. So it's a win-win either way. Either the units don't attack. Oh, nice. Nice. Look at this. Spears only do a 6 damage to this guy up front. What is that, a Highlander? Yeah, Highlander. Makes sense. This guy will very likely be dead. But this kind of is already looking not so great for the Persians. Because even if these spears come together and kill a horse archer, it'll take 3 spears or 2 spears and an archer to kill 1 horse. So yeah, this is a battle that the Persians will not win. And if anything, this allowed the Yushi to counter and take Sardis and press onward if they want. We do have some Palatins in the back. 3 Palatins in the back, so that's nice. Don't forget, where is our scout? And don't forget to go around and make more agent networks if you can. It really does help to be able to see the full back line of your opponent's situation. We have moats up here, so we can kind of take our sweet time up in the north. Coming in primarily with spears, which, again, the horse archers will do a decent chunk against. We'll get an axe around here, maybe. One thing I like to do with militia, too, is put them up in situations like this, because it can be very annoying when enemy units get onto your own urban tiles, because they do get the defensive bonus. So, something that causes that to take a little bit of effort, where such that some of the spears or archers or whatever have to be in a position. That's another thing to think about tactics, and when it comes to tactics and trades, is that, yes, losing a unit sucks, but as long as you get your opponent in a position you want them to be in, rather than a position they want to be in, that still can be considered winning a trade. Because maybe you move up a unit or two, like maybe you move this axe here, right? Does it take him 3 spears and a couple of archers in this region to then kill this axe and then step a spear on there? It's like, okay, so the spear is still there, but if we didn't put that axe there, you know, maybe there'd be just way more spears in front of us. So, something to think about. Alright, back to the Persians. Persians need to full retreat from this situation, and they're not! Oh, no! This is exactly... This is no good! This is no good! Oh, coming in for a rout. Alright. Still, I'm thinking we probably killed 2 horse archers here. And that's it. And then I'm pretty sure everything dies. Do we have a horseman? Yes, we do. Is that it? Oh, wow. $23 orders left, though. Can we get into the region? No. You can force march. We have plenty of training from force marches, actually. So, alright. Maybe we can get another decent route chain. This is going to be an excellent example. Good lord. This is going to be an excellent example, though, of the type of trading we want to see. Because, yes, we're going to come up and we're going to kill now 4 units. No, it's 3 units, sorry. We'll see how many Nestor can kill on the return fire here. Actually, kind of looking a lot better for Persia now. 1 order left, though. What we really need is route potential. The 2 paladins changes the equation for sure. It being able to force march them into position certainly changes the scenario. And I didn't... This chariot was up here. I didn't see the chariot, where the chariot came from. Well, maybe it was back here. I was looking at just the spears and the horse archers. Sorry, the spears and the regular archers. Alright, only 1 order left on the clock, but we're just, there we go. There's the kill. Or the attack. hopefully. It's a bummer that Nestor wasn't able to get his highway up in time. Because the coastal highway would really help with this reinforcement. You'd be able to come down here along this river. This horse unit, I'm pretty sure, would be able to make it into this conflict without a forced march, if this border was connected. So we should be building another hamlet here that would pop down to this. These coastal tiles, maybe even grab this one, I'm not sure. But certainly it would expand to the die. And then maybe we build a hamlet here at some point if we can, which will pop over here. One more here would pop over there. You guys really got to be... There we go. We gotta get a little bit better about ending our turns. I've been noticing that a lot. That players... Of course, you know, I don't know what players are looking at or going through, and that's totally fine. But I've been noticing lots of players running out of orders, having no queues to look at and no events to look at, and yet still taking a minute or longer to pass the turn. So it's happening across enough different players that's causing me to wonder what the trend there might be. But do not forget that you can resolve your build queues and your events on your opponent's turn. And when you're in combat like this, you can rest assured that your opponent's turn is not going to be over anytime soon. So feel free, if you run out of orders, or certainly run out of military units as well. We are retreating from Pura Shapura back to Capisa, so that's a nice grab, a nice win here for the Persians. And I think that is the correct call. I think we did, I think Persia did end up taking the field here. I got a little overzealous and a little too excited. Mostly because I think the Palatins changed the map dramatically. And it's not even just the Palatins themselves due to their strength, it's the route potential, right? And that's what makes route so difficult, is that routing can allow you to secure multiple kills, and that's what you don't want. I like the hiding of everybody in the woods. That's good news. That's great news. And we'll see. Oh, please check for Vigilant. We don't have the civics for it, but one thing I check when I'm under siege, I check my character list, and I scour this list looking for Vigilant, and we actually have a Vigilant character right here in the form of Oligarch Lamasani. So, of course, again, we don't have the civics right now. We do get a civic boost next turn, so if you survive one more turn, it might be worthwhile if we're trying to get these walls online to pop her in the city at the last-ditch effort to try and have it hold a little bit longer. Nestor is once again strong. Sorry, Quetzal is once again stronger. This is interesting. This could be taken by Quetzal, and it would be a very, very impressive win. Stats-wise, if we look at this situation. Orders. Sorry, not orders. Science-wise, that would be very impressive if Quetzal take the win. And it will just go to show and affirm that you don't necessarily need a science lead to win these games. We've seen, in fact, I think for the first half of last season's tournament, I think the majority of games won, at least in the first half of the tournament, nearly every single winner had a worse overall science rate than their opponent. So we had the trend actually was people with lower science were winning games. I don't know if that held throughout the tournament, and of course I don't know if that trend has continued into this tournament, but generally speaking, it's not just science that wins games. And I think one of the things that makes that true is that Old World is a game where very little adds up to be a lot, but you need to invest in that little, right? And so I think it's the level of development that is required of scientific scaling that can leave the door open, because it all comes down to build queues mostly, right? You have to be building all these specialists and stuff to get that science that you need. So for every specialist you're building, it's a military unit you are not building. So then it becomes about striking that balance. Can you build yourself up while also being able to defend yourself? One of the reasons why onagers make an incredibly insane tech, because one onager can make it so significantly harder to siege a city. Just a single onager. Imagine placing an onager not even in the city, but back here. Oof, that would be rough. Plop a axe or something here. This would have been able to pepper these guys as they came in. It would have made it so hard to take the city. Because even being on this tile, it's not as if they could run up right in front of the city center and not be attacked. In fact, with an onager here, you could put another onager and put a Shapura, and that would be two onagers firing on this oncoming advance. This advance here would not be able to advance into this city if two onagers were here. Could the fight below be a distraction to push top? I think, I actually think it's the other way around. I think the posturing up north is a distraction for the Persians to come take the center. Because it does look, without a concerted amount of effort here. Ooh, looks like we'll get a decent route chain if we want it. Ooh, man, it's so... I love watching these fights because they can go back and forth so quickly. You know, even as a caster, even as someone with the experience that I have. Again, I'm not really the best tactician, personally, to be totally honest. But, it's wild to think that, oh, you know, this is going to go one way. And then turns out, you know, you're completely wrong on the next turn. But there is lots of routing potential right here. Look at that, 12 damage out in the open. This guy does 9, so this one horse archer is enough to set up the opening of a route chain out here for that horseman. Now, what's going to be tricky is there's now a tactician in the region. But fascinatingly, Persia is posturing in the north and then currently sieging 2 different cities. Excellent use of orders and manpowers, and also flexing the fact that you are stronger than your opponent. And, I mean, I would say decent kind of read of the map. But yeah, I actually think the northern approach is a feint, and really I think it's a win-win either way. Because if we see a mass presence of units come down this way to defend this city, maybe we can advance. And what that becomes is an order tax, because you have the Yushi having to bounce back and forth between 2 fronts in order to defend, while this kind of slow creeping for the Persia makes it less order intensive. What are we looking at? There we go. I don't want players to feel like they're pushed or pressured, but you know, if you're looking at the tech tree or you're looking at a build queue or trying to map out something out, you know, you have several minutes at this stage in the game on your opponent's turn to do so. So, you know, even if you don't want to go through your build queues or your events on your opponent's turn, once you run out of... Once, yeah, so Quetzal saying, not forgetting, just thinking, yeah, that's no big deal. Not a big deal. I don't, you know, when you rewatch this, I don't want you to think that you're doing anything wrong. But, the other thing to think about it, actually, it's actually value to end your turn quicker, because this banked time situation up here, you gain more time that you can use on later turns to extend the clock, should you need it, when you take your turns quicker. So it's actually to the player's benefit, too, to if you are done with your turn, with literally no other actions you can take, you just end it. Because, A, that helps the game go quicker for everybody, which is nice, but it also helps you reserve more time that you can use later in the event that you actually need to take a very, very long turn to try and math out a particular combat situation or whatever. So there's a benefit to ending your turns earlier as well. But also, again, of course, just remember that all of the thinking, planning, or whatever, you know, this was a 6-minute timer, and we're already, you know, we have 26 orders left, and it's already 4 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock. So this is a minute and a half that Persia has to kind of keep thinking, and this is going to tick down to probably about 2 minutes left. So you have at least half the amount of time on your opponent's turn to do plenty of thinking and strategizing. So don't feel as if you need to make, again, that's not to tell everyone that they need to end their turns, but I'm trying to paint it in the sense of it's a benefit in a lot of ways, including worker turns or build queue stuff or event stuff. In a lot of ways, it's actually a benefit to do that stuff on your opponent's turn to some extent, because technically that gives you a longer turn, right? You bank some extra time in the time bank, and you're not wasting your own time on your turns, moving workers, doing build queues or things like that. Sometimes it can backfire a little bit if your opponent takes a really quick turn, but in my experience, that very rarely happens, where it can happen, but generally speaking, I think players take a good amount of time taking their turns. Yeah, so as an example, there's 2 orders left now. There's some stuff on the clock remaining to do. But if we end our turn in the next 10 seconds or so, Persia, Quetzal would have had those 3 minutes to plan, think, do whatever. Of course, I think the other thing going on in an active conflict situation, you do want to be able to see what your opponent is up to, what your opponent is doing. So I can respect that. We have not added in our Vigilant Governor, and we also did not repair this, so it looks like it's going to fall before the walls line up. Bit unfortunate, but doesn't seem to be much we could do about that. Hello, Burkay Batal. Welcome to the chat. Thanks for joining in. 15 of you guys live with us today. Happy Monday. Hope everybody's having a good time. And this is the thing that I find funny about Nestor. I've seen this in our own games, largely through watching him through the eyes of Portcullis. But he will be in a conflict situation, right? Where he's actively ceding territory, actively, weaker, and I mean actively in danger. And yet his entire empire is almost continued just moving business as usual. We're seeing Stonecutter. We're seeing that with a Woodcutter Forum. I mean, we are swapping to Horse Archer now, so I think that's the correct call. We're seeing a Priest, stuff like that. He just keeps developing. Now, sometimes this works out for him, but other times it doesn't. And I just think it's funny that he just keeps developing in the middle of conflict situations. Sergei Patel says it should be like chess where each side has 30 minutes and gets an extra 1 minute each turn. You mean for the whole game? That'd be interesting. I don't think 30 minutes would be enough time to play one entire game of Old World. But something like that would be a way to make games end quicker, that's for sure. So one city has fallen, Purashapura has fallen, and it looks like Varnu may very well fall as well to the Persians. 2 cities on 1 turn, claiming the central basin. Most of it, anyway. Citizenship in 3 turns. I would love to see a colony situation from the Persians at some point. I mean, reasonably speaking, on my own, like, I play this game pretty fast. And Alcaraz and I... Well, I guess the fastest duels I've ever played were about 2 or 3 hours. Start to finish. So I suppose you could do a time bank where each player has an hour. And then get something like an extra 2. Actually, that would make sense. If you did the time bank thing, I would do it this way. Both players start with an hour's worth of time, and every turn they gain an additional 2 minutes. Because what that would mean, in 60 turns, that's an extra hour. In 120 turns, which we've seen so far, that is an extra 2 hours. If you combine all of that together, that's a 3-hour game. So maybe even start with 2 hours in the bank. Because if you do that 2 hours and then an extra 2 minutes, a 120 turn game would be would have an allowance of approximately 4 hours. And that seems reasonable to me. Well, as an experienced and quick player, that seems reasonable to me. Because somewhere, for about 100 turns in this game, I think in a duel setting, one-on-one, these smaller maps, and relatively experienced players, especially if we're not falling into a stalemate, I think an average 100-turn game should take anywhere between 3 to 6 hours. The games that are going very, very long are A, stalemated games, but also, respectfully to our players, games played by players who aren't as experienced and then therefore either don't know how to read a situation when they've lost, or the reverse is true, where they don't know how to read a situation and bring a game to a close. Both of which are incredibly difficult skills to learn, by the way, so no fault to our players, but just something as an observer and as an experienced player and as somebody who's considering this stuff from the organizational perspective of how can we keep these tournaments fun, engaging, moving forward for our players, and also a relatively low level of commitment respective to the games and the genre. Obviously, we recognize that a 6 or 8 hour game might happen, but we kind of don't want to see, 13, 17, or 20-hour games, and we've seen a couple of those in this tournament so far, so that's not really the trend that we're looking for. So from an organizational perspective, I'm always in tune with this and trying to figure out the hows and the whys, or what might be causing this. And you do notice that some of those very, very long games aren't necessarily between the most experienced players. It's often mutual newcomers, things like that. Which, of course, again, makes sense, because the experienced players are very ruthless. They know how to end a game when they have a head, when they have a lead, or if you're like me, like the Alcaraz game, you know when to surrender when the chance of victory is very small. am not as competitive as some players. But also, I just don't feel like wasting my time or the opponent's time. Like, you know, last season in that Alcaraz match, I could have played out another 60 turns, and maybe I would have won. You know, maybe. But I judged that possibility as maybe 5 or 10% chance of me winning the game. So why am I going to spend another 6 hours, 4 or 5 hours playing out 60 turns for such a small chance at winning? If it was more competitive, absolutely I would have stayed in, but it wasn't, because I can read when it is or isn't competitive. And I'm super, to be clear, I'm super fond of the Hail Mary last-ditch effort long shot strategy. So if I do have something like that cooking in the background, I am more likely to hang on to the last minute because I'm waiting for a bonus card or a power spike or, you know, whatever else, right? Because you can turn the tide in the most interesting of ways sometimes. But unless I have a distinct thing, a distinct plan in the works that I'm waiting on, it's very easy for me to assess a situation and decide if I do or do not have a viable path to bring the game home or not. But yeah, time banks could be, you know, a full time bank for the whole game could be an interesting way to handle it. Building a stronghold in Sir Quetzal, so we've got our 4th law for the Hyushi. We actually have 5 now. Oh, we did get serfdom. Oh, civics boost. Yes, I missed that. I was rambling, and we did finish our civics boost. So we now have serfdom and tyranny, which is a nice pickup because that really helped boost our economy and, of course, our trading output. Probably high time that we dip into vassalage as well. We have 167 science. You really don't need 4.5 coming from centralization. This is a swap that you want to make very regularly in your games. Come the mid to late game, is centralization is great for getting you ramped up earlier. But unless you have a crazy mega capital with like libraries and a really good governor, this is never going to go much higher than about 10-ish science, give or take, right? So, eventually vassalage just becomes economically superior. So always make sure that you are checking in on this, the science output relative to your overall output. And I would say you can start thinking about swapping this out anywhere between being at about 60 to a 100 science relative to the science that this is actually granting you. So keep in mind. We are advancing north on Capisa. So man, this central city is falling. This central basin is falling rapidly. Also, when you're playing on tight, do not forget you can swap into repair damage on your opponent's turn. That can always buy you a little bit of extra time. That's one of the kind of generosities of this online network dynamic, that, you know, there's some good things that can favor the defending player, or favor you when it's not your turn. So like I said, you can buy yourself turn time on your opponent's turn to make key decisions, like moving workers or resolving events or even setting up your build queues. And of course, as a defender, you can always swap immediately into repair as soon as you start taking damage, which buys you about 1 extra turn-ish, plus or minus, of defense for the city. Comes in handy. And of course, yes, look, all around the Empire, Stonecutter, Forum, Master Priest. And really can't stress enough with the training output. Let me hop into Nestor. Yeah, with the training that we have here, really these should be horse step riders. Because let's map this out. We have a 9-turn horse archer. In the capital, we're building 4-turn horse archers, right? With the Step Rider upgrade pipeline, this is why I love stirrups on the Yuji so much. This is a 3-turn horse archer. 2 turns for the step, 1 turn for the upgrade. And so basically, you can build this horse archer in a third of the time it would normally take you. That's one of the reasons why stirrups in particular is exceptional on the Yushi, because that if they have like this hidden gimmick that's not explicitly spelt out for players, that anywhere you want you can get a 3 to 5 turn horse archer regardless of the training output of those cities. It doesn't matter if that a horse archer would normally take 10 turns or 13 or 6. You can do it in 3. So that's pretty neat. And in a time such as this, I would very much like to see here the oh, and actually even here, right? Let's not forget that you can build horse archers without horses. So we actually have not set up our horses in the city. So we could still build a 4-turn step rider by building the step rider here, sending it to Saketa because you do need horses in the city improved to upgrade it, and then upgrading it. So in 4 turns, we could have 2 extra horse archers. Champ sheet, we can keep doing axes to deal with the spears, right? So that becomes your composition. Melee axes, horse archer spam, and then toss in from the capital, since we have decent production up here and you can get the flanking bonus, toss in the occasional horseman from the capital, and there's your 3-prong approach. You get axes to deal with the hard melee counter of your opponent. You get horse archers to match range output of your opponent, within reason anyway. Of course, the archers have an extra range. And then you have horses for route, and that gives you decent composition of ranged, melee, cleave, and route. Everything you need to rack up tons and tons of kills. But you need to be leveraging that slingshot, that pipeline, really, because it cannot be stressed how amazing this is. 9 or 10 turn horse archer can be brought down to 3 turns. Is it twice as much training? Yes. But is it worth it? Also, yes. Although we're running out of training now. I think we're promoting or something. Why did we do this? We just brought a camel archer up north. Up to Capisa. I'm pretty sure this camel is going to be dead. And that is not something that we want to see die. All right, well, things are really cooking with this game, so I'm going to stick with this in the event that we see an inevitable conclusion in this session. And the other game that I'm going to cast today is on session 0. So short of some amazing, fun, fantastic rush stuff happening, I suspect we'll be able to hop into that, plenty late. Our friends in that game are playing a desert map anyway. So those maps can take a minute before there's conflict anyway, because it's all land with no rivers. Very slow going along those maps. Machinery in 1 turn certainly could be the thing that stops this advance in its tracks. All right. Pieces should fall this turn, I think. Should be enough stuff in the region to make it happen. His spear could have gotten all the way down here. He probably would have moved the archer out of the way. Anything to make it fall in one turn is super useful. Surprised we're not going crazier on this. To be honest, I think we could make this fall in one turn. We have 2 spears in the region that can hit this. Oh, we would have had a third, even, to be honest. But yeah, we just need to do 2 more attacks on the city, which we have. Yeah, we have 2 attacks. This surprises me. This surprises me a great deal. Sanchi's going to be a chore to break into with the moat. Realistically, though, I wouldn't bother. Go up north and go around to Kandahar. You have a wide open plain here. Only a couple of forests to have to worry about. I guess that would be bad for the horse archer situation. But this is another reason why I'd like to see colonies on Persia. Because you could start colony buying out to here. Give yourself some hunter territory bonus for your archers. Axeman Rush is a thing, but if you're talking about onagers, then I think you're already outside of the time frame or realm of what I would consider an Axeman Rush. Because you kind of do one or the other. I mean, depends on what we're talking about in terms of rushing. But yeah, onagers and axes would work. You probably want to, instead, though, do onagers and spears. And the reason for that is because if somebody comes at you with a bunch of axes, you'll just blow them all to hell with onagers. But if you have onagers and axes, and somebody comes at you with a bunch of chariots, well, then you have a problem. Because everything in your army composition can be routed. And you don't want that to happen. And you don't want your chariots to just dip around and through your axes and then go kill your onagers. Because there's nothing worse than getting set up for a fight, fully expecting that you're going to obliterate your opponent should they come in to, test your advance or whatever. Only to have your 2 or 3 or 4 onagers get obliterated by just a couple of chariots. Not a good time, not a fun time. Elephant in 2 turns. I'll be curious if we go for that. We'll just keep going somewhere else. Ooh, battle line could be good just for the battle line or hydraulics could go both be interesting opportunities here for the Yushi. Battle line because that would get us a bonus longbow card. And upgrading our axes to maces would actually be really handy for these spears. So this is a very fun, unique, interesting situation where I honestly think the best... We just got onagers, so bring out a couple of onagers quickly. We can get one in 2 turns. Fantastic. Fantastic. 2-turn onagers. They'll be up at Saketa and Sanchi in time to start pushing the stuff back and start locking our opponent up. I don't want to see comp bow here, though. I want to see battle line. I actually really do want to see battle line. Surprisingly enough. all of the axes transforming into maces would be quite nice. Or at least not all of them, because you still want to keep cleave around for dealing with the occasional pesky zealot. Cleave is very handy for killing zealots without wasting an entire attack. Also, that's something that step riders are great for, too. People think that eventually you stop building the step riders, and honestly, you don't. Keep a couple with you at all times. Because if you have an annoying, 1 or 2 damage left on a unit that you have to take out, and you don't want to use a full-blown attack from your horse archer, or chariot, or axe, or mace, or whatever else, you can just bring up a step rider real quick, and plink the thing to death for the kill secure. And then, even if your opponent kills the step rider with 1 full hit from something, it's still 1 full hit that's not going on a more important unit. So it creates this interesting thing where your opponent is inclined to ignore the step riders, and yet the step riders, if they continue to hang around, will continue to benefit you by giving you efficient order kill secure. They're really quite nice, and also they're really good use for baiting, because you can practically not at all tell the difference apart between a horse archer and a step rider. So sometimes your opponent, if they're doing really quick math, can be like, oh wow, I can do a lot of damage to this horse archer, and then they kill it, and then they realize they wasted those 2 attacks on a step rider, and the joke's on them. So, yeah, sprinkle. You don't need to do a massive amount, but I think in any conflict, having 2 or 3 step riders accompany the battalion was your Yushi player. They always have a use. Because we all know how important poke is. We all know how important it is. Like a great example was down here, right? We were trying to get these to secure. We had to waste an extra attack down here to secure an axeman or something. If we had a step rider somewhere around here, even as far back here, because they're so mobile, we could have brought a step rider all the way up here to get that kill secure, which would have allowed us to do another full 7 to 10 damage, whatever it was, on an entirely different unit. So a step rider can, in a roundabout way, right, if you conceptualize it that way, a step rider may only do 1 or 2 damage in and of itself, but technically that enables you to do another full 7, 8, 9, 10 damage against something else. So it's almost like a, I don't know, what is that, a transitive property or something like that? By extension, by being more kill efficient, by spreading your damage around more efficiently, the step rider to actually increase your overall damage output in the battle itself. And again, with all of this funny math and shit, you'd think I'd be actually better at fighting battles, but I'm not. I get my butt kicked on the field all the time. So, take everything I say with that lens. Yeah. Your mileage may vary. Where are we going with Polis, I wonder? Forestry, maybe? What's in our hand? Persia? I'm surprised we're not getting machinery as the Persians, to be honest. We could be thinking camels? Are there camels on this map? Well, we do have riders, so the answer to that is always yes, but are there camels on the map itself? No. No camels on this map. We have camels in our... Okay. So I could be seeing land consolidation for camels, because this is a very nice battlefield for camels up north. And pretty decent down south as well, if you really get into the thick of things. And camels will throw a real wrench in the overall composition of our Yushi friends. We have our tactician is a new queen. She's inspiring and humble. Elephant owner, so an extra 5 legitimacy. He has an elephant. It's a recreational elephant, though, not a war elephant. It's for the palace gardens and fancy balls. Oh yeah, with negative 20 wood per turn, I could see us getting lumber mills up and running. Looks like we've done a lot of chopping back home. Oh no, this must have been a forest fire. I mean, maybe. Persia could have chopped all that. There's more to chop down here as well. I would definitely do that with this worker next turn. Well, once it's finished in 2 turns, send him out here and just go on a chopping spree while I wait for forestry to come online. Love myself a good chopping spree. Looks like we're advancing in the north as well. Oh man, this could be perfect timing. We have 2 turns until an onager comes online. And an onager anywhere up in Santry, probably these woods would be my guess. I would say place the onager in this wood. Or actually both woods is good. Or also maybe even 1 tile behind in this almost perfectly river blocked location. There's a river in nearly every corner of this tile. So put your melee defenses in these woods ahead of that. And then your onager back here. For which this would give you fire on all of these urbans immediately surrounding the city, which make it very difficult for melee to get in range. And of course, the archers, if the archers come all up on these hills, they'll be able to bombard the city indefinitely. Alrighty, alrighty. Yeah, if you got guests coming over, get the elephant out. Make it do a little dance. We'll throw an elephant ball. I mean, I can't get over how satisfying this is. This is a mounted unit that is able to do this much damage to this thing. These guys. Does it take the exact same damage in return? Yeah, sure. But I don't care about that because we all know killing stuff first is the main thing that matters. Which is why I think in a battle between 10 horse archers and 10 spears, the horse archers would win just because the horse archers are more likely to be able to hit first because they're faster and they're more order efficient and they have more vectors of attack. You know, if you want to attack a horse archer here with these spears, you literally just have the 3 tiles to attack from, which of course these 3 tiles would be enough to kill 1 horse unit on this tile. But if we put any other unit on one of these tiles, even a militia, then you now have run out of room to kill this unit. Whereas the horse archer doesn't matter where any of these spears are, you can get up and focus it down. So you could put a horse archer here, and then another one back here, and that's the 3 kill. You don't have to do 3 7 damage hits. You could do 2 7 or 8 hits, and then a 5 or 6, and that'll get the job done. Whew, excuse me. Also put a fort on this tile. That's what I would do. You put a fort on this tile, you put an onager in this tile. Great defense for this city. Probably a fort up on this hill as well, and an onager up on this hill as well. That'll help alleviate pressure from the hills. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 4. Yeah, so get all about here. And then with that sitting there, you could maybe put an onager here. And of course, an onager in the city. Okay, so 1, 2, 3 at least, and then maybe one on the iron, which would be a little bit exposed. But the one in the city could hit most of the things that try to kill the one on the iron, and then the one behind the iron could hit some stuff too. All right, interesting, interesting. Beautiful, beautiful pressure from the Persians, though. And also, I do have to say, though, great demonstration of tactical retreating. Nestor has a science lead. Nestor is about to get onagers coming out next turn. So realistically, they just need to buy themselves some time. And in a situation such as that, you really, really, as a player in these fights, should not go all in defending territory that's not really giving you much. Because the other way to look at this, the Persian army is getting further and further away from their lines of reinforcements, right? So, with onagers and a couple of a little bit more built-up strength, right? But yeah, we're quite a ways behind now on strength. But anyway, a devastating loss outside the walls of Sanchi or Saketa could result in a massive 180 of the state of this game. Where even if that just turns out to be a reset, where, let's say, Nestor can't immediately rebound and start taking territory, but, you know, the Persians have to back off and recollect themselves, right? Spears aren't that much cheaper, though. I think that depends. I think there's a weird way to look at. I think the reason they both cost 50 wood, one costs 50 iron and one costs 100 food. But food is more valuable than iron, which might make it sound like the horse archer is more expensive. Except if I spend 40 turns building nothing but farms versus 40 turns building nothing but metal mines, right? My economy is so much stronger that I have the food, because what else am I doing all game? I'm building specialists, right? So to maintain an army and produce an army of spears, we're building metal, which is, yes, cheaper than food, but it's also less useful. I just have, I spent all that time building and stockpiling metal just for whatever infantry units are consuming the metal. However, having a situation like this, where we now have 142 food per turn, is actually massively valuable. So ultimately, at the end of the day, whether you're generating 50 iron or 100 food per turn, I would actually rather, overall, for the health of my economy, be generating 100 food per turn. And at that stage, the cost is almost... This is going to make no sense, but it's almost effectively the same, because it's basically still one turn's worth of our resource income. And yes, even though technically food is the more valuable income, I know it's hard to get across what I'm trying to say. But yes, metal is cheaper, but I also don't really want a lot of metal, I guess. So I'm thinking about the level of order cost. That's right. It's coming down to like the logistical cost, I guess, is what I'm trying to point out. It's easier, I think, to generate, depending on the map. Obviously, this is very map dependent, but it can be easier to generate lots and lots of food than it not necessarily is to generate lots of metal. But again, you're still building tons of mines. Like, let me go on this. Also, Persia's doing Persia things and killing some stuff, which is great. Get this battle started now before the onagers get lined up. This is a farm that can generate 8 food. You could generate 8 metal on this hill. This farm takes these two improvements take the exact same amount of wood to produce. This improvement takes 1 less order to produce. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. This is an 8, both of these improvements, 8 metal or 8 food. Both take 20 wood, one takes 1 less order. So yes, technically you could argue we need 2 farms for every 1 metal mine to get the output we need to produce a horse archer over a spear. That much is true. However, I would rather have twice as many farms as mines anyway. So what increase am I actually, you know, I don't know. I feel like basically what I'm trying to say is it doesn't actually feel like I'm paying more for a horse archer. Of course, the training cost does mean that the horse archer takes 1 more turn to build, on average. Because, oh, actually, is it 2 more turns? No, it's 1 more turn. If we assume a base training rate of 20 training per turn, the horse archer is 100 training and the spear is 80. So the horse archer will take 5 turns and the spear will take 4 on average. So yes, there are those logistical things to consider for sure. But it also doesn't matter if we're doing a matchup of 10v10 because the armies are already built and they're already engaging. And then it also comes back to the idea of where is the battle happening, right? So we have to spend orders to reinforce. So we could say that the spear is cheaper and it comes out 1 turn earlier, which is true. But that spear also has to travel further and spend more orders to get back to the battle. So are we defending or are we on offense? That changes the calculation, which is one of the reasons why these conversations, frankly, are just stupid. And I'm not saying you're being stupid. I'm saying these conversations on Discord and stuff like that perpetually lack nuance because there's immeasurable numbers of exceptions that can come up to any situation. You could easily say spears destroy horse archers, but you could also easily just say horse archers destroy spears because it really depends on where the battle is happening, what the terrain looks like, what the supply logistics of each player looks like, and what the economy looks like of each player, and also, most importantly, what the overall army compositions for each player looks like, because ideally, nobody's fighting a battle with 100% spears and or 100% horse archers. So, it's not that simple. And I think that's the nuance that I try to parse when making the statements that I'm saying basically like something like spears don't actually counter horse archers would basically be my general pitch. Is they do, yes, but they also don't. Because, look at this. This guy could just obliterate that spear pretty easily. Just 2 hits like this. And then, do we have a slinger? No, we don't have a slinger. But yeah, you just need 4 damage after you get 2 horse archer hits on that guy. And it's more order efficient. Not too bad. Order efficiency is probably the biggest thing about it. Order efficiency and attack vector. Because anyone who's ever fought a battle with exclusively melee units and no range support knows how absolutely awful that is. And you can lose a fight literally just for that reason. Just because your opponent has range units, even if it's just slingers, dude. Would saying spears are soft counter to horse archers rather than a hard counter be fair? Possibly. I actually think, if anything, I'd phrase it the other way around. I'm probably a bit overzealous with my take of saying horse archers counter spears, but if anything, it's probably the other way around. I think horse archers are a soft counter to spears, whereas axes, for example, are a hard counter. But, it's tricky because ultimately the thing that the spear does more than anything is prevent the unit from getting to other stuff, right? This is the other reason why I think it doesn't necessarily count as a counter, because this horseman, the melee unit, let's say he wants to get in here to rout. Well, he's going to have to go around spears, so 1 other spear in this region would stop that from happening. So then it comes down to the question of how do we kill the spears. So anything that can kill the spears is good. So an axe can kill the spears, that's great. Horse archers can kill the spears, that's great. But more importantly, let's say we're actually trying to kill this unit for whatever reason. Maybe it's a tactician ruler, maybe it's an onager that we need to get to, and our friend here put just the 2 spears in front of him. The horse archers, while they may not be able to travel through, they could still line this entire region and all fire into the thing. Again, you probably lose a bunch of units if you do something silly like that, but the point I'm trying to make is that they can all... It's the focus fire element that allows them to shoot past the spear. Not even just the damage they can do to the spear, they can also just shoot right around the spear, whereas a horseman is going to have to worry about going through the spear somehow. So that's another element where it's like the roadblock that the spear puts up doesn't quite hit the same against a horse archer because of their mobility, the range, and then the fact that range units will do full damage. But yeah, soft counter, fine. I don't know. I don't think it matters. The rhetoric doesn't really matter. I think most of my ranting about them these days is just to say, hey, maybe if anyone who has ever spent the last however much time playing this game thinking horse archers suck, I think they deserve another look. Because I have given them another look in the last 4 or 5 months and have become unexpectedly pleased with them. Persia must be unexpectedly confused at the Yushi's perpetual retreat. Well, I think they're about to get an education as to why that's happening. Let's look at the Persian order economy, actually, and see how we're doing. All right, so only 9 left. So we're getting probably about 1 or 2 more units into this region. And only one of the units in this region is a spear. Okay, and the other one's an archer. Maybe another spear in this region. What are we going to do with this? Force march, poke? No. So I think Persia is about to get an education about the tactical retreat because I have to think that we're going to have a good round next turn as a Yuji. Right? We have some horsemen. How many horsemen in the region? Let's pop on over here and look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 horsemen in the region. Ooh, that's a nice position from a good ranged archer. Marksman archer. This would be a high priority target. Oh, and we managed to get a route too. Oh, are we spending training on this? I didn't look at training when I was over here. Nice. Okay, so that's solid. That's solid. 2 kills though. All this for 2 kills. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. Problem Gambler is suggesting Persia's going to lose at least 6 units next turn. Yeah, entirely possible. Right, so this is going to be a bit of an education. This perpetual slow retreat, I think, is going to give... give Persia something to think about. Because this, although, again, I cannot stress how hilarious it is that Saketta's building a goddamn inquiry. That's so funny. Ooh, goods boost would be great for right now. Really, really great. Which, does that mean? Ooh, that means we... Oh, no. Sorry, I forgot. I thought good boost was on hydraulics for a second, but I'm wrong. We are getting hydraulics next. Yeah, so I think we're going to have a pretty decent turn here. And I don't know that they're the... Although, we do have our tactician nearby, so maybe the counter could be good. Depends on how hard we hit here. We have a camel in the region. This is the time to hold. This is the moment. We have rivers in the region. Although the Palatins don't really care about the rivers, and of course neither do the horse archers. Sorry, the regular archers. Oh no, oh no. But then the other thing, right? The archers are now in this region at 4.5 strength because, of course, they don't have sentinel coming into this region. Whereas our horse archers are going to have 6 strength. So let's compare these two. Do I have one out in the open? Okay, here we go. Here's one out in the open. This does have... no, is that a step rider? That is a step rider. See, even I can't tell them apart. All right, so we have a horse archer that will do 9 damage to a regular archer. An archer will do only 4 damage in response. That is a massive swing. That is a massive swing. All right, we're coming up. We have 12 damage. So, yeah, just 2 hits. Here's the horse archer. Yep, bam. Boop. Route number 1. Here we go. Looking great. Here comes the horde. I suspect we're going to try and kill this zealot with splash from... Okay, another horse archer. Boop. Oh, such a beautiful... Wait, we're going the wrong way. Oh, okay. Why did we do that? Oh, Nestor. You only need one hit. You could have routed all the way through that. Okay, well, whatever. Kills are kills, I suppose. Still plenty of kills. And also, yeah, I would have preferred to kill the Zealot with splash damage. We can still do it with cleave, though. This one cleave is all we need. This is what I mean by saying cleave and axes are really good for Zealots. If we get this guy down to its 1 health from the Zealot attack, we can just cleave on this spear, which is going to be very, very worthwhile, right? And kill that. Oh, more routing coming in hot. Great. Everything's dead here. 17 orders left. A couple of horse archers remain. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. This is why you don't mess. One spear is not enough. You cannot come aggress into a horse-born nation and only bring one spear with you. If this formation was littered with spears, maybe everything still dies, question mark, because of the horse archers, but at least it takes a little bit more effort. Jesus. Massive counterattack here from Nestor. I think I would have done it slightly differently, but as long as he managed to kill everything, who cares? Okay. Did he just kill? Okay, so perfect. Dead, dead. We have... Come on, notice this. This is 8 damage. Literally 2 orders. 2 orders, 3 orders, obviously. And you have another... There it is! Bam, bam. Dead. Can we get the full amount? 7 damage there. That's a step rider. Horse archer. 7 damage there. 7 plus 7 is 14. There we go. Look at this. And then look at this. Oh! No! If we had the orders, just want to point this out, because I was talking about earlier about how even the step riders can pull their weight in this situation. This is a crappy 3.3 step rider, right? But we would just need 2 orders if we had no other options. We have a horse archer up here, but we have no other options. This also demonstrates with just 2 orders, even the step rider can get this kill, because look at this guy. This horse archer here could do 8 damage or 5 damage to this thing. But if we wanted to come do 10 or 8 damage to this other unit while we still had the battle going on, you can come up and poke these last hits with these step riders. These step riders can still have an immense amount of strategic value. We lost 2 units on this initial assault from Persia and wiped out 7 units and will very likely kill an 8th one. Awesome. 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 Very, very great defense. And I won't fault the little like hiccups, because again, keep in mind our players are playing network. They're playing live. They don't have undo. They have to do all the math in real time. Not only even all the math, they also have to look around at all. Like they have to remember, oh, I have this guy that can do this thing. I have this guy over here that can do this thing. So whatever one player notices versus another player observing is going to be completely different thing. You could have your eye fixated down here as the observer, and your opponent could be, and the player that you're looking at could be grabbing these units up here and doing math with these guys while you're like, why don't you do this thing? So, even Nestor and of course our players on the, when you get our commentary, always keep that lens in mind that we have no idea what you're even looking at. We have no idea what the players are even looking at apart from the broad picture of the fact that, hey, there are 8 Persian units outside Saketa that I need to kill, right? So there's that, but very well done, very well executed. And yeah, Berkey Patel said the horse archers are running away. Quick, let's chase them. A dead soldier. Indeed. Back to the Persians. The Persians. Nosedive. Look at this. We had a power lead of 1,700 over 1,100, and it has just dipped down in one turn, 1,400 over 1,100. So this is not a trend that you want to see in these games. Obviously, battles will result in you losing lots of units. This is fine, to be honest. Even in a winning game, you can lose a bunch of units like this. But what you want to see on the next turn is also your opponent losing a bunch of units. But so you never want to be in a situation where you engage in a battle. And also, this was the initial siege, right? Back on around turn 70-ish, when we started felling cities, right? So this is the value, cannot stress this enough, this is the value of tactically retreating. Nestor gave up 3 entire cities, and then technically speaking, in the grand scope of this overall war, I would say has now won the war. Now, it could go either way because of overall territory gain and build queues and stuff like that, sure. However, the thing that Persia needs to worry about is this science situation. There's a massive lead for the Yushi Empire, which does in fact mean that over time they will come back stronger and stronger, and they will continue to get stronger and stronger. And all that mostly remains now in terms of power in Persia, and pretty much all of Persia really, is this force in the north. Cannot speak English, forgive me. This force in the north. So the other fun thing that the Yushi could now do with their onagers coming out, take this onager in Saketa, move it directly up here to Sanchi, somewhere around here. Like I said, probably build a fort right on this tile. And look, the onager can dip right onto this tile. Dip here, fort here, unlimber here, and then, in theory, depending on how well Nestor can read a game state, with similar in power, you could do some quick napkin math and think to yourself with your agent networks. Also, here's a really great tip for agent networks, by the way. If you want to see the entirety of your opponent's territory, but you only have a lack of characters, well, here's a tip for you. Move this scout into Zadrakara, start an agent network. Great, but we only have 2 agents, right? Well, on your turn, you take this agent or this one, because they also kind of suck, so the one over here, and you send them into this city, and then you send them into this city, and then you can either send them back if you want, or just keep them where you are. For 2 orders per move, you reveal all the territory, and since you already had eyes on this territory at the start of your turn, you do not immediately lose vision on this city. You will lose vision on cities that you do not have agent networks on the next turn. So even if you only have literally 1 character that can be an agent, if you have an agent network in every single city, you could spend 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, probably don't need to look down here, but even more, you could spend a turn, right? Does that cost you an entire turn if you go that many cities? Sure, it could. But what do you gain from that knowledge? You take a turn, you look at every single city in the Empire, and you note, okay, we got a couple of paladins coming online, 3 up here, that's fine. You can say, oh, but we have some officers down here, that's okay. You also say, there's nothing in the core, great. Okay, there's workers coming out up front, that's a little odd, interesting. A slinger coming back here, okay. Master officer and slingers. Oh, and also the other thing that piece of knowledge that I gained for that entire turn worth of orders, sending a single agent all around the map, is that the entirety of the Persian military is up north, which means I can take an onager and plop it here. I can take an onager and plop it here. And then I take my highly mobile, highly ruthless, entire mounted battalion and go retake Kapisa, Purashapura, Havanu, and Sardis, and reclaim the center, and it will take forever for these infantry units to catch up to me. They won't get there in time. And now they won't be able to attack Sanchi either because it has a wall, it has a moat, and by the time I've started my advance, there will be 2 or 3 onagers outside of Sanchi alongside a couple of axes. So, fun tip for you guys there. Yeah, don't be afraid to spend, 6 to 10 orders and take a quick glance around your opponent's empire before you advance or while you're trying to show up your defense. It might eat into your current turn, but information is incredibly powerful and very, very, very well worth the order investment. So all you really need to make Portcullis worthwhile in terms of information gathering is just 1 agent. Any old agent will do. Doesn't matter what they do in terms of stats. You just need to see what's going on. Ooh! Oh my good lord. Good lord. I would do this. Oh, yes! I love it! This is the thing that I love about this game, and I'm so glad I just caught that with the events. We got one of those pesky events where our spouse came up to us and said, nah, we don't like you. So you have two options, or whatever. They said, you're doing a bad job ruling the country. I forget the narrative. But anyway, the point is, oh, it's a rising star. Right. So this is why rising stars are great, and this is why Behind the Throne is actually low-key kind of great. Because everyone thinks about the negative space of this, right? The negatives, like, well, oh, I had my perfect heir, and then somebody came along and killed him, and that sucks. And yes, that does suck. And it's easier to maintain those moments in the game in terms of the, Russian roulette, if you will, of, Behind the Throne, Rising Stars characters coming and messing with your shit. But this is the complete opposite end of the RNG spectrum, where we actually are able to swap into a hero. We didn't need to spend the civics. We don't get the abdication penalty. It's literally of course, we're going to get a little bit of cognitive decay, but that's fine, right? And now we have a hero on the throne. Also, if we look at our overall dynasty, right? Judge, orator, scholar, children who aren't leveled up. There is no immediate access to a hero for the Yushi player. This is our spouse. So that event, these abdication events, even there's one with stressed, right? Where you can try to indulge revelry and all of a sudden you come back and the option is either you stay stressed or you abdicate the throne, right? Tons of people might look at that and be like, this sucks. I didn't get my stress cleared and that's annoying and whatever. But think about all the times you might actually look at that and be like, oh, you know what? I kind of want to abdicate to my builder anyway. And there you go. You get to do it without spending the 100 civics or get the -10 penalty. So there's tons of events like that that actually, if you think about them from the perspective of being like, oh, I could use that right now. They could come in. They can come in. They can be as useful as they are annoying. I don't know why we're backing off here. Are we getting? Oh, we're gonna go for the alpha. Are we going? I don't know that I like this. However, I guess if we obliterate the entirety of the Persian military, then GG, I guess. Fine, look how the training graph look. Will Persia be able to remake before the horde reaches key cities? Great. I'll do you one better. I'll look at the training output of the cities themselves. Parsha, there are basically two solid, very solid training hubs in the Persian Empire. We have 230 training output cities. So that is a, what is that? A 4-turn Palton, and then about a 3 or 4 turn anything else. Well, 2-turn slingers and stuff, but for archers, that would be about 3 turns. Plus or minus overflow, because it would probably be like a 3-turn archer, and then a couple 2-turn archers, and then a 3-turn archer. And then we have a 20, which would be a 4-turn archer, or 6-turn Paladin. And then the rest are relatively mediocre. And what do we have for rush mechanics in Persia? Nothing good yet, but our civics is 100 civics per turn, which is solid, so plenty of rush. And we are now retreating. Yeah, so this is something, I think Nestor is about to make a mistake. Look at this. There's a very important way to conceptualize a situation like this, especially if you have two things going for you. One, a highly mobile army, which we have. Another thing that could make this that could give you a highly mobile is if you had coastal movement, right? But it doesn't matter in what form it takes, as long as you have a highly mobile army, and in this case we do, in the form of our horses. So that's the first thing. The second thing, if you look at this quagmire of units, attacking this would make virtually no sense. Because what you have right here is the vast majority of the Persian power graph stuck in the mud. We know, as the Yushi player, when we hop over to the Yushi player, we know there is no road. There aren't even roads out here. There is no road, there is no river, there is no border, there is no coast. These guys are stuck in the mud. Look at this. Look how much orders and how much time it would take a spear or an archer to get anywhere, right? Comparative to this horse archer that can literally start attacking the city right now. Like, we could have retook this city on this turn. there's actually nothing that would have stopped us from retaking this city on this turn. So I think that's a bit of a misplay on the part of Nestor. Again, he can't see down here. Nestor can't actually see down here, to be fair. But this is where it comes down to things like intuition. You can see you're similar. You can see the back line, that there's not a lot of power back here. Like I said, take that agent, walk him around a little bit. And then that would be like, okay, this has got to be at least half of the Persian power score. More realistically, it's probably about 75 to 80% of the Persian power score, right? And that would inform my decision to come down here. Of course, that can come back and bite you in the ass all the time because different things can make the math wonky. And it's always annoying when you're wrong because you have every bit of information that makes you feel like you're right and turns out you're wrong. It happens to me all the time. Ah! Hello, Frederick. Welcome. Yes, finally, indeed, we have a Horse Nation fielding axes as well. We're well into this game. You're 80. We also have onagers coming online. I really would have preferred a blitz back towards Capisa. I think that would have thrown your opponent into a huge amount of disarray. But I'm an aggressive player who likes to take risks. So, yeah, I would have immediately, especially after watching Persia take their entire turn backtracking off of this city. I have my onagers. I have my moat. My moat, not even just a wall, my moat. But also, by the way, can we admire how beautiful this city graphic is? This is from the new DLC that came out earlier this year, Empires of the Indus, for those of you who don't own it. Gives us 3 new factions, 4 new wonders, 2 new religions, and a bunch of other stuff. It's worth every penny. So if you don't own it, buy it. And it comes with the Yushi, which is now one of my personal favorite factions. And actually, the Tamil. My 3 favorite factions are in the game are Tamil, Yushi, and Hattie. Those are my favorite factions. Which is funny, because I never play any of them in a competitive space. Well, no, I did play the Yushi now. And maybe I'll play Tamil next. Alright, yeah, so I'm talking about what we could have done. Let's talk about what we are doing. The Persians are getting themselves recollected. They have 1 order left. Yep, they're churning out their Paltans. So basically, Nishapur, Parsa, and Pterodon all are on Paltan duty. So honestly, it might be a good idea for Yuji to toss in some spears at some point. Ooh, and we have a Citadel. 7 laws on Persia is not good news. Because now all these guys can sit back. We have 2 Citadels up and running. And soon to be a 3rd. So these Paltans can sit back, get upgraded to 8 strength. Honestly, on that note, maybe it's a good thing we're not advancing. This is one of my favorite things about casting, is that I spend 2 minutes saying, oh man, you should do this, you should do this. And then either one of 2 things happen. Either they do it and I go, oh wow, that was a terrible idea. Or I eventually get new information and go, oh man, thank God we didn't do that dumb idea I suggested a moment ago. But yeah, and now that allows me to recalculate the situation. And of course, Nestor can see that, the 7 laws situation. So that would give me the explanation as to why we didn't advance. Because taking the center with a crack blitz force of horse archers and such would only get us so far if by the time we got back to Purashapura or Sardis, we were met with another battalion of 6 or 7, 8 strength cataphract archers. So all is right in the world. Looks like this inquiry should help us resolve hydraulics in 1 turn, which is good. And that's going to get us, Sandstorm in Sir Kartal. That's going to get us some mills up and running if we want them. Economy is looking pretty good in Yushi now. We actually have our own 6 strength unit coming out, unique unit, and we are... What law do we need? Frankly, I would love to see Doctrine here from the Yushi. When I do the Stirrup Rush in particular lately, my favorite thing to do is Stirrups, and then, because normally I don't even bother with Aristocracy after Divination, but whether I have it or not, I do Stirrups all the way up to Doctrine. Doctrine's my next beeline, because then I can just kick the whole horse spam into overdrive. And normally what I'll do as I'm beelining towards Doctrine is I'll put a horse archer or a horseman in pretty much every queue, even the bad queues like this one that takes like 8 years to do it. And ideally, by the time I hit Doctrine, I have about every single queue halfway done with a unit. So all of my 8, 9, or 10 turn horse archers then get order rushed at a cheap cost, and so they all came out in about 4 or 5 or 6 turns instead, which is pretty handy. And then on the next turn, you order rush everything again, as much as you can. And suddenly you have an influx. You do Doctrine, you do your Stirrup Spike, and then, sorry, you do, with the U-shape particular, you do Stirrups, you get your Step Archer Spike, and then you do Doctrine, and you get another massive burst of horse archers hitting the field, and then hopefully you don't have somebody who hit their 7-law timing in that time frame, and you go kill some shit. Yeah, because if someone hits their 7-law timing, which people can totally do, because it takes about 60 turns to pull off everything I just said, at least, and people can absolutely do the 7-law thing in 60 turns. But as long as someone hasn't hit that timing, you should be able to go kill most things. Even spears. Depends on the game, depends on the map, depends on the player, of course. As always. And if you do run into a situation, last tip on that strategy. This actually can be another thing that the Step Riders are handy for. This is a Step Rider. Look how far we can get. So you figure with a force march, we can get about twice as far-ish back here. One of the very useful things that Step Riders can do is be sent around big buildups like this and back into locations like this to try and take out or delay citadels. You do need a handful of them, but 3 Step Riders would be able to kill this guy in one fell swoop. Of course, after you do that the first time, I'm sure your opponent will put a body blocker on it the second time, but if you can keep them close enough, let's say there was more tension in the center of this game. It's harder to do on this particular game, but I just mean in general. Let's say we were battling over here. If you can keep yourself within range with your agent networks, what you can do is you can watch as these tick down. You know, it's taking 6 or 7 turns to build this thing, right? And that once it gets down to 2 or 1 turns left, you send in your horse archer, your Step Riders, which, to be very clear, are all going to die immediately after you do this. Kill the worker, stop the thing, and then, again, it's a trick you can only use once, or probably never, if anybody listens to me talk about it right now, and they play against a Yuji in the future. But yeah, it's a trick you can only do once, because if you stop it, then they have to bring another worker and take another 6 or 7 turns building the citadel. But yes, next time they'll very likely protect it. But it's another way to buy yourself twice as much time before the 8th strength units hit the field. And yes, I have done that, so it is something that can be done. But of course, it's risky, it's difficult. Sometimes it takes your entire turn just to do that one trick. But ultimately, in games like this, all you really need to do is to buy yourself time. If you buy yourself enough time to do whatever plan that you're working on, you can win. Another onager up north. How many onagers did that make for the Yushi Empire? Let's take a peek. I think I'm going to stick with this game. Game's interesting. Oh, right. I was coming here to check onagers, and I didn't. We have 3 onagers. Sorry, I was reading something. Range is coming online. We did get our compo, so that's going to increase our training output even further. And we do have wood already, which is great. Unlike our Persian friends who are still hurting for wood. Oh, not too bad anymore, actually. Did they finally get some lumber mills up? Or did they lose enough archers that it no longer matters? Hilariously, I actually think they lost enough archers that it no longer matters. That's really funny. Pterodon. That's really, really funny. They just lost enough archers that it doesn't matter. EQCR. Looks like a close game. How's it going? It is a close game. I think ultimately there's going to be a swing in favor of Nestor here. The Persians took this central basin pretty much unopposed as they started advancing and won their first battle. Nestor just hard retreated all the way back to Saketa, abandoning all 3 of these cities to Persian dominance. Persia was feeling the hunger, though, and kept advancing with their initial force of about 8 or 9 units. They got outside the walls of Saketa just in time for an onager to show up, and still chose to advance. And then they were virtually obliterated. They killed 2 units on their initial advance with the 8 units that they had in play. And the Jushis turned right around on this open plains here and obliterated all 8 units. So, big win for the Yushi player. Very good use of tactically retreating. And then the main issue here for the Persian player is the science that's happening. Science production has favored Yushi for most of the game. They have a 1600 science lead in the tech tree and are making 50 science more currently than their opponent. So Persia is not in a position to catch up of that tech lead overall. Let's take a look at the actual techs discovered. 25 to 22, though, not that big of a difference. Of course, Nestor likely has some big techs deeper in the tree. And of course, Nestor has these 3, or these 2 rather, that the Persians do not have. Portcullis and stirrups are big ones that the player don't have. And also they have machinery and hydraulics. So actually, 25 to 22 techs, that roughly sums up the big gaps between our players. I don't even think Quetzal has compo. So the other thing that's going to the other thing that total is probably factoring is things like bonus cards too. So there's quite a few technologies of good strength that the Yushi have that the Persians just simply do not have. But the Persians are just getting their 7th law and their citadels down. They're 1 law ahead of the Persians. Of the Yushi. So that could provide another timing opportunity. Although with onagers, I think that's going to become harder and harder to deal with. So I think it's just going to be a matter of time before Nestor starts. We have tons of onagers coming out. Starts onager creeping towards his opponent and taking them down. Nestor could be waiting to stockpile. I don't think Nestor's going to be making a move. Nestor is a very cautious player. He is not... I've played a few games against him. And if he has any weakness... and to be clear, we've both been able to beat each other. So I think I think he and I are a relatively even matchup. Oh, nice. Speaking of this, foot and mouth, I was going to say, if anything, he is not aggressive, or at least for my taste, not aggressive enough, and doesn't always press an advantage when he has one. But foot and mouth, it does look like we are going and beginning to press our advantage with early onager creep right now with just 4 onagers. Of course, you really don't need that much because I would like to see maybe one more onager, maybe one right here if we can reach it. Nope, that's a horse, that's fine. But also, the thing that's nice about this particular location, this is all going to be flat, open terrain, which is great for horsies and great for, what do we call these? Horse girls? We call the horse archers horse girls now, which frankly I love. This is a horseman. These are horse girls. They don't not have female models. Some of the archers do, by the way. I pointed this out in one of the casts, and I don't think anyone... They're really hard to notice. Where are you? Some of the archers have female models. Wow. Okay. Well, they do, but not a single one of these is a woman. But that's okay. It doesn't matter. The models in the game that have a female model are workers, scouts, and archers. Those are the three that... And of course, the settler has a man and a woman on it. Because they're going to go make babies in the new land and start a thriving city for the Empire. I agree. I don't think hydraulics was necessary, but one thing I do like about it is that we'll probably toss out a couple of mills, which I guess we don't really need, but it would be good for economy, mostly, I'm thinking. But yeah, hydraulics feels a little bit overkill. Maybe we're thinking crossbows? Could be fun. But I said this earlier, I would love to see battle line. And the reason why I want to see battle line is because maces against the pikes, against the spears would be devastating. You get your 8th strength longbow, and then what you get to do with your awesome 150 science per turn, just get infantry square. Here's your 8th strength unit. You don't even need a 7th law. Maces, longbow, pikes. Pikes will destroy the cataphract archers. There you go. So really, realistically, after machinery, which I definitely get from a defensive standpoint, Nestor should be full, like, pump the gas, full speed ahead to infantry square. This would be 700 plus 1600, that's what, 2300. We're making, like, 150 science per turn, so that's, I don't know, what is that, like, 14 turns? 15 turns? I'm bad at basic math, guys, sorry. But yeah, about 15 turns-ish, plus or minus, and we would have pikes, and that's 15 turns from whenever the hell we discovered this. So 70 turns, 75. So yeah, we would have pikemen coming out in approximately 8 turns from now if we did not get hydraulics. So always important to think about your beelines, think about your army composition, think about what your opponent has set up. We do know our opponent has 7 laws, so that's 8 strength cataphract archers, which is yucky to deal with. Yeah, so, yeah, think about long-term strategy. Or, I suppose, in technically, this would be short-term strategy. And frankly, I mean, even just the longbow card at this point would be super useful. If you know cataphracts are coming down the pipeline, I really think having any measure of 8 strength unit can be useful. So if it ever does make sense to do a quick deviation to battle line, I don't actually think it's that horrible of an idea. We already have a handful of axes that can get upgraded into maces if we want anyway. Keep a couple around for the cleave, but then get the bonus card. I think 700 and 350 science. I don't know, would be able to get all that stuff in like 7 or 8 turns. 24 of you of the chat, thanks for joining in. Thanks for being with us live. I don't think I might not cover that other game today. Hopefully we'll go to a second session so we can just dip in. Do it after the fact. That said, I mean, Well, no, if I had a sense that Nestor was going to wait another 20 turns before deciding he was strong enough to attack, I probably would have dipped out of this one and started covering the next match. But since we're posturing here, I'm thinking that we're going to start seeing some onager creep. And then the other thing to think about, too, from the Yushi perspective, what is this? This is all open, flat terrain. A little bit of scrub, some marshland. But the marshland will only mess up the horsemen. It will not mess up the horse archers, right? So really, just the only thing we need to worry about is this little strip of scrub, and of course the forts themselves will be annoying. But once you fell Katora, all of this is open, flat terrain. I'm not really sure how I feel about coming north, but assuming we force our opponent into the position of tactically retreating the way we had to do down here, it's very important to note that there were no roads out here. So basically, if we can get ourselves in a decent enough position where our horses are positioned, like let's say we creep a little forward up here with more onagers, which, oh man, look at that. That range is great. We can totally do that. Creep up here with some more onagers, just kind of, oh yeah. 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, right? While also getting all of our horses kind of in this general region behind. What we could hope to do is, as the tactical retreat happens on the side of Persia, tons of units are going to end up in this open terrain. And frankly, that's just hunting season for horse archers, especially with a hero on the throne. If you can get all 6, or what is it, 7? If you can get 7 horse archers into this region, every single spear. It'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then 1 extra attack from something else. We could at least, with a well-placed and well-timed launch offensive, assuming that our Persian player is keeping spears on this back line to defend from advancing cavalry, which would be the tactical decision that would make sense. So there would be 4 spears-ish right here, right? We would be able to kill 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 of the 7 spears in this region. And that's kind of what I'm talking about when it comes to the alpha strike potential of these horse archers. It's like, yes, looking at this setup and the idea of sending a bunch of horse archers into this immediately reads in our minds like, well, I'm just going to get obliterated by spears. But if you kill all of the spears first, well, then you're relying on the strength, which is not insignificant, by the way, the strength of the sentinel archers to come back at you. So the math gets very interesting very quickly, and yeah, I think with a hero on the throne as well. Ooh, man, did that get spicy? And we have moved up the hero, and we are moving up some axes as well. We're posturing towards our opponent. Another great thing that we could have done. Oh, I would have loved to see posturing with a couple of axes up north, and then behind in all this flat terrain, getting our horse archers up in the region. We need some horse archers down here moving up. Does look like I guess we're going to go for cutting the torso off of the Persian army. And I really, really hope we see, if the Persians decide to full dip from this scenario, I really hope that we can see some version of horse archer pursuit. We have our hero on a horseman, though, which I have to say I hate. I don't like that. This guy should be on a horse archer. So there's a piece of, there's something I would change. Why? What is? Yeah. I mean, as far as horsemen go, you're still doing a good amount of damage here. I guess if you get a bunch of routes, that's very, very quick cognomen. So I understand the impulse to leave it on the horseman. If it were a zealot, that would also make sense. But I don't know. I want the positioning. In terms of the positioning for the launch offensive, I would rather it be on a ranged unit. Boldus has retracted his message. You trying to pilfer viewers from my stream, buddy? No, I'm kidding. I can actually come check out your stream and leave it on in the background. Let me know in chat if you guys can hear this in the background. Wait. Is it? Wow, is that game already over? Or are they done with just a session? What? Okay, 2 hours, quick session, not too bad. I don't know if it's over or not, but I'll find out. You're done with the session. Welcome to the channel, Boldus. Yeah, I was just teasing you. Did it conclude, or is it going into a part 2? If you have the desire to cover another match, Impognagrift and Joni Jonas are currently happening right now. But don't feel pressured like you have to take it. Feel free to just relax and kick back. And wow, 52 turns in 2 hours. That's awesome. Good job, players. Good job, players. Nice. Nice. That's a nice pace. Politics in Yushi is fantastic. Let's do a political check-in. Yeah, that makes sense. Take it easy, buddy. Political check-in for Persia is also pretty solid here as well. Friendly. We have 1 friendly, 2 pleased. And in Yushi, we have 1 friendly and 2 pleased. Do not apologize, Boldus. You did great. Thank you for covering what you covered. No big deal at all. Tactician migrating north to deal with the incoming trouble from the Yushi. I can't decide what would be better for the Yushi at this point. Persia to try and stay and defend Katora and just being subjected to a bunch of onager fire, or Persia trying to leave. Oh, we're finally getting our wall, our road network. Persia's like, shit, we gotta go! We gotta go! Yeah, so I can't decide what would be better, to catch Persia out in the open and chase after them with horse archers, or to just get the battle under onager fire. Probably onager fire, to be honest, despite all the forts in this region. But onagers are just always useful in a fight. And I love how we're doing this. Look at this cascading progression of the onagers. Do not make the foolish mistake that I make all the time of grouping your onagers up, because the last thing you want is one surprise horse archer or Palatine cavalry. Look, this is 7 or 9 damage to come up. Literally, and this is what I mean by trades, by the way. People give me shit when I say sacrifice a couple chariots or whatever, or a couple units. Dude, if I could come up here, if these guys, 3 onagers were grouped together, and you're telling me I could come up here with, I don't know what, 5 Palatines and kill all 3 of these things, I don't care if I lose all 5 Palatines for 3 onagers, because that buys me more time. Because there's no way, I don't think this guy's attacking without his onagers, right? He's doing the whole creep thing. So if all of these were grouped together, that buys me more time to, if nothing else, get my road network finished so I can get the hell out of the region and not lose 12 units. Boldus wants a small recap of the region, of the matchup. Sure, I'll look at the main map while I do it. So, basically, Nestor played conservative, expanded down this way, champs down here, riders open, the rest are clerics, I believe. Yes. And, whoop. And then managed to secure a foothold in this this southern basin. Meanwhile, the Persians secured their whole entire region, kind of settled it a bit more methodically, and then forward settled this region, and basically had been staging up north, pressuring, not just posturing, Sanchi for a while, which led to Sanchi building a wall and a moat, which is really cool. I think it's a good use. I think it's still a conversation of when to build walls and moats and stuff. And I think it was a great game demonstrating that. And then eventually Persia was able to with their staging up north, they postured outside of Sanchi, and then they started creeping with a battalion of about a dozen units across towards Purashapura. And then, as we can see here, the Persians won a minor victory, but ultimately led them to cascading and capturing all of the central basin. However, in their hubris, they continued to march on Saketa, and just by the time they got to Saketa was the first establishing of Onager presence. They attacked with all 8 to 10 of their units, killing about 2 themselves, the Persians did, and then in the next turn, pretty much every single Persian unit was instantly obliterated, in a lovely display of horse archer, horsemen, and onager tactics combined. So that was fun. And are we unpopular? No. What's causing these rebels? This is the second rebel I've seen down here, and I can't figure out why. And that brought us back to the state we're in. Persia has 7 laws. Yushi have onagers, a bunch of axes, a bunch of a bunch of horse archers, and a couple of horsemen. And I was thinking that they would use their moat and onager, a couple of onagers up north, to just cascade back through the southern basin and start pressing up towards Zadzakata, while the Persian army was stuck in the north with pretty much nowhere to go because of its lack of movement. However, it looks like the Yushi people are hungry for some Persian meat because the axes have been sharpened and they are ready to go carve up some spears and archers in Kotora. This is the vast majority of the Persian force. However, in just 2 turns, we will have our first citadel. 1 turn, actually. We'll have our first citadels, and we have another one coming up along the way. So we'll have at least a minimum of 3 upgraded cataphract archers, and more to come. Economy on both sides is pretty stable, by the way. Also, we have a tactician on the throne for the Persians, and we got a lovely behind the throne event. We had our scholar on the throne, but we got our male husband, and just to highlight this again, because I really think people undervalue the positive sides of the chaos of Behind the Throne, sometimes in the RNG Rising Star stuff. In the Yushi dynasty, there is not a single military archetype at the moment, right? So there's no heir we can name or succession law we can change that will put an aggressive archetype on the throne. We have our lovely scholar ruler. We have really great science in the Yushi Empire, and they had a good cognomen, right? Fountainhead, I think, is plus 60, and yet we got an event where this guy said, "I hate you," and you either have to imprison him or let him take the throne. And naturally, we let him take the throne because having a hero now at this point in time would be absolutely incredible. So oftentimes people think about the abdication events or the coup events, right? The events where a character comes and tries to take your throne as solely negative because we want full control over that perfect ruler that we groomed or whatever. And that's totally understandable, by the way. But it also does gloss over the fact that sometimes those events can come and hand you a gift horse on a silver platter saying, "Oh, here's a hero general that can command your Yuji horde into combat against the Persian player." So pretty much as soon as this guy took the throne, we began aggressively posturing, which is great. Great adaptation here from the Yushi player. And the Persians are slowly but steadily retreating. In one more turn, their road network will be connected, and I suspect they will just dip entirely out of Raga. Also, another shout out to the horse archer. The axe can come up here and do 6 damage, but will take a full counter attack, whereas the horse archer will come up and do... Nope, that's a step rider. Doop. Horse archer will come up and do 5 damage, so 1 damage less, but with no counter attack. So, pros and cons to both. There's no dissent in the city, Aaron, no. I checked. There was a rebel back out here, too. Oh, there's dissent in this city. So maybe there was dissent and we've cleared it already, but I don't see a governor. Yeah, not sure what's going on with the rebels down here. But there is dissent in Sardis, so that makes sense, at least. Yeah, Quetzal did good. If anybody is watching this currently and wants to go back on this session, probably... How far are we? probably about 45 minutes to an hour ago, and see an excellent example of tactical retreating. This game would be it. We had the Persians pressure Purashapura. We had the Yushi attempt a little bit of a defense, but they lost the battle. They not even lost the battle. I think they both took about 2 or 3 kills, so it was pretty even. But the presence of Persia in the realm, in the city, when they came back and took their 3 kills, was so overwhelming, such that, you know, the Yushi could have brought more units up front and gone all in for a defensive Purashapura. But instead, what we saw was everybody fall back to Kapisa, and then even as both of these cities were falling, Persia was taking them both at the same time, everything fell back from Kapisa to Saketa. So Yushi was very content to withdraw from this entire region, waiting on onages, waiting on power buildup, and Persia fell into a trap. When you get your opponent on the run like that, we've all done it. It can be very easy to feel like there's blood in the water and that you're so close to going for the kill. And Persia thought that and read the situation completely wrong. They marched themselves into a kill box at Saketa, and that's where we see this power dip. Not a massive one, but this power dip happened. And you'll see on the other side of things, this was the battle for Purashapura. So a little bit of a loss, and then a retreat. And then this was the battle of Saketa, and massive loss for the Persians, allowing the Yushi to get back into the game. What is Yushi using their tremendous silence for? Unfortunately, not for infantry square, which is what they should be doing. Battle lines in the hand again for the possibility of free longbow. I really just think one of the reasons why we don't see these technologies so much is, for better or worse, right or wrong, right? I'm not even saying I don't like battle line, but I think battle line in Maces has such a reputation for being so shit that people just, it's like this tech doesn't even exist in the tech tree. It's so rare to see players grab this, but man, even if for no other reason to grab up to infantry square, it's so worth it in this situation. And of course, the bonus longbows would be super handy for our push. But we're going for citizenship, so it looks like we're trying to match our opponent with our own 7th law. But I don't really think we need that. The Kushan cavalry are fun, but not essential. We've begun our bombardment of Katora. So 3rd battle of the game. The siege of Katora begins. More roading. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think much like the horse archer thing, it's, if I were to guess with the macemen, it's probably because they don't have any other utility. When you think about a spear, it has pierce. When you think about an axe, it has cleave. When you think about a horse unit, it has rout. When you think about the range units, they can poke from a distance, you know, offering kill secure that way. I think the issue with the macemen is that it's a 6 strength unit that's pretty good damage-wise on its own, but damage is all that it does. So there's no way to kill a zealot, you know, with that 1 spill damage like you can with an axe. So in some ways, the axe has almost a little bit better utility than a maceman does. There's no way to do the same thing with a spear through pierce. There's no way to rout, obviously. So I think if the maceman had some level of utility attached to it, that would increase the real estate of the unit by quite a bit. But I don't even think it needs to do more damage or anything like that. I think it's literally just the fact that every single unit at this stage, even the camel archer, it's ranged, right? But also has an extra fatigue, so it's highly mobile, right? The elephant has panic, right? But every single unit in the game, from the mid game and beyond, we have pierced, we have cleave, we have range, we have splash and more range, we have super pierce. It pierces 3 tiles. We have even these conscripts pierce. We have rout. We have range again. Every single thing, super cleave on cohorts. Every single thing has a special utility ability. The maceman does not. I think that's why nobody likes the maceman. That's my theory anyway. I think it's actually less about the unit itself and more the fact that it's literally just, all it does is I hit stuff for big damage, which is not necessarily bad, but in a fight where you want diverse unit comps, dude, cleave is amazing. Pierce is amazing. We secure kills with these things all the time. An extra ability to do that little bit of extra damage can be the make or break difference between securing an extra unit kill, because it saves us either an order or it just actually gets us the damage to make the kill. So that's my theory on the Maceman. It's the lack of utility. If they did something funny like splash or circle, you know, and I'm imagining those two, because I'm imagining just swinging a big mace around and slam. So that's like Lord of the Rings, Sauron style maceman technique. I think maybe they'd get a little bit more use than we see. But I do think now that we have longbows, though, I actually think battle line rushes are something that we should probably see more often. To be totally honest, because they are still a 6 strength unit, and then you bring an 8 strength unit in tow. That is very hard to reach. You're missing the point, Constant. It's about having every unit that you have available to you able to do something. Like, look at this army composition right now for Hyuji. We have ranged and splash damage. We have hyper range mobility from the camel archer. We have ranged mobility from the horse archer. We have rout, and we have cleave. So every single unit that we're about to use in a situation does more than just, oh, I hit stuff with lots of damage. So if all of these axes were maces, there'd still be lots of damage. And yeah, they have support by other stuff. But I think at the idea of eventually you're going to be into a situation where you have this zealot left to kill, right? With its 1 HP. And you have a maceman. And you have the ability to also kill, I don't know, this spear. And the zealot's next to the spear. Well, then you need to make a choice. You're either going to waste your 9 or 10 damage from your maceman, killing the zealot general on the Paladin, which, of course, is important and has immense value. Or you're going to kill the spear, which makes sense and has immense value, and because you're doing a lot of damage to it, but then the Paladin's going to live. The Axeman would allow you to do both. You could kill the spear and the zealot. Because utility. I'm not necessarily saying I'm on that same page, but I have listened to people talk about how they would rather have an Axeman than a Maceman just because of cleave. And I can buy the logic. Because think about the order efficiency of securing a kill with cleave. It's actually technically more efficient than routing, because routing costs an order. To be very clear, I definitely think routing is overall stronger than cleave. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is sometimes eventually you run out of orders, and every little last drop of damage and spill over and splash and poke helps secure kills. Circle on Maceman isn't a bad idea. I agree. I agree. That actually technically makes it a weaker cleave, but it's a weaker cleave from a stronger unit. Persia is very low on tech. Well, not very low. They have 7 laws. But they've been behind. Nestor is doing Nestor's thing. Nestor loves his science. Loves his science greed play. So, definitely would be interesting to see him go up against a player like Marauder or Hazard, who are known for early mid-game aggression. And see how well he holds off. But, yeah, Quetzal is now nearly 2,000 science behind in the detectory, which is another reason why it's a shame that 2,000 science, look at this, 1,600 here, 700 there. It's a shame that 2,000-ish science wasn't invested in battle line, longbows, and infantry square. Because I do think I think maces themselves would be super handy here. They'd obliterate all this stuff. Yeah, Persia beat Yuji to 7 laws, probably because Yuji did the stirrup beeline first. Yuji did a stirrup beeline, which didn't result in any massive power spike in terms of attacking offensively. However, it did actually come in pretty handily on the defense, I think. And I think these guys are gonna come together nicely on the offense as well. He does have hydraulics, yes. Ballistas are coming out. There's a couple of ballistas. We have 65 training in the champion seat, by the way. This is a double iron location or triple, I can't remember. Double. Double iron, so there's a 65 training in the champion seat. Lovely. And this is my favorite thing about this. We don't see him building more officers. Turn 85, you have 65 as training in the champ seat. You don't need to build more officers. I can't tell you how many times I've seen players at this point in time in the game still putting officers in this. And it's like, dude, this would be a 5-turn officer when you could get 3 ballistas instead. Or, I don't know, 5 slingers. So, yeah. Eventually, you need to know when to stop developing your empire. Very valuable skill to develop. It's now the Yuji's turn. We have 46 orders on the clock. Let's see the order econ. Persia has actually come back ahead of Nestor with order econ. I think it's because they finally got laws like monasticism and such. They did not have either of those. So 64 to 49, that could be a deciding in this aspect of this conflict. And of course, slightly more power now with 8 strength units up and running. Here we go. The cataphract archers are up and running. So let's grab this guy and see the damage we can do. Boof. Gross. Not too bad against the horse archer, actually. Only 9 damage against the horse archer. Not too bad. How much would the horse archer do in return? Only 3 damage. These are a sentinel, though. No. This is a rider. We still would only do 3 damage to ride. That's brutal, man. Woohoo! That's brutal. Yeah, so the one thing I will say about the Stirrup Rush, if somebody beats you to 7-law timing, that can be a really, really bad thing. I don't know. Still looking good for Yuji here, though, because we have such combined arms. But if you're really trying to do that stirrup power spike, you know, go kill somebody in 50 turns type of thing. I had this in a game that I was practicing yesterday where someone was practicing the strategy against me. And I was Greece, and I managed to get my hoplites online. Not my hoplites, my phalangites online. Are we backing off? We are. Oh my God. So I'm telling you, man. I told you. Nestor is a cautious player. Now, I'm not saying this is the right or wrong thing to do. I'm just saying that it's the thing that happened. He has eyes on the mass cataphract upgrade timing, and he's saying, no thanks. I am not going to start a major battle into Katora while my opponent has cataphract archers that will be here in approximately 2 turns. Gross. All right, we're backing off. That does make sense. But all the more reason, finally, all the more reason, I did the math on this. I think, I don't know if I'm 100% correct, but I think if we had just beelined straight for infantry square after machinery with a fine grab, I think we'd be getting there in about 5 turns. So we would be having pikes in approximately 5-ish turns. Now, in 6 turns, we're going to have battle line. We probably won't skip the longbow, so that's going to be another 2-ish turns. So that's 8 turns, and then it's going to take us another 10-ish turns to get infantry square. So we're about 20 turns or less away from infantry square, when we would have had it in approximately 5 turns if we literally just... This is why the Yushi are weird. I feel like the Yushi don't need 7 laws. If we're talking 6 strength timing, the stirrups, the horse archers and the horsemen are better than the Kushan cavalry. Like, they're cheaper to field. And you can get more of them faster. So you don't need a 4-law timing. And then with 7 laws, I don't know, you can get your science so crazy that, I don't know, maybe just go for pikes or something. Like, I don't know. Weird. Because then when you have battle line, and if you already did stirrups, look where you are. Martial code. There you go. Citizenship, martial code, barding. I feel like maybe we don't need laws on Yuji. Not 0 laws, but I feel like Yuji are like nomadic, pastoral, lawless people who just don't really need to do the whole I'll get every single law strategy. Maybe. Something's in there. There's something in there, I think. Stirrups, battle line, infantry square, doctrine I think I like for the rushing, for the orders. And then maybe, I don't know, just go up to barding. And then you just hit everybody with a bunch of cataphracts. I think if anybody could get to cataphracts relatively early while not dying, since stirrups is on the way and you're going to get a bunch of horse archers even for defense, I think it probably would be the Yushi. Cleric spam, science craziness. Yeah, I think I'm... Alright, that's the next thing I'm going to try with these guys. Alcarus doing the math with us. 6,830 science without bonus cards for stirrups, plus 7 laws, plus infantry square as usual. No polistry, no polis forestry or compo, which Nestor currently has. Barding is like 4,000 science to get to. And he's saying, oh, but he's saying it's very expensive and pikemen come way earlier and shut it down entirely. That's a good point, too. Pikemen are an issue. I like Buildmoose is thinking battle line rush on using, not stirrups. If groves, go swordsman. If no groves, go cataphract. Love it. All right, well, this is the recap for the game. I love that idea. That's also worth exploring. I just love this faction so much, and mostly because you can play them so weird. Okay, so final recap of this. We lost the central basin to the Persians, tactically retreated, obliterated their remaining advance, staged on Keturah to siege the city, and noticed that our boys in Persia now have 8 strength units that are really brutal. Don't want to deal with any of this nonsense, so we're backing off, going into a session 3 with Nestor now grabbing scholarships for some god-awful reason. You don't need more science, dude, although our science did drop to... By the way, it should be highlighted again that about 40 of our 150 science was coming just from our Spy Master, by the way. So, nice portcullis output in this game, I should say. We're actually also getting 10 science from an agent. Yeah, so I think portcullis was generating something crazy like 40 science. All right, so anyway, I'm gonna just close out the stream now. Apologize for not doing a more in-depth recap. Thank you guys for tuning in, 30 of you in the chat, and if you've enjoyed this video after the fact, please give us a like and subscribe. Also, hop on to the Old World YouTube channel for the full playlist to catch everything going on. Hop on the Old World Discord and come hang out. As always, I'm Scientific. This has been the Old World Community Tournament. I'm so confused.